working together, because there is no point of reinventing a wheel that has already been created. I think it is going to it's going to go a long way. And I think last point I will say is, you started with saying about trust in what one is doing. So if I'm supporting a not-for-profit partner, we have to believe in those organizations. It is not something, if you start working on a social emotional learning program or a well-being program for educators, it's a time-taking process. It's going to take good time. And then that's a very common question one hears from a funder. So I think it's very key to believe, to trust, and to be committed towards what you're supporting, right? For example, if you've taken this charge and you've decided that you're going to support well-being, you have to be committed in doing so year on year, because then when there is trust and partnership between the partners, like between a funder and a partner, I think it trickles down to what the work that they are doing on the ground. Because if they feel that constantly for the support with the partners. Yeah, so I think that is my little bit that I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Garima. Actually, I can just stop by saying I resonate with her. But I'll also, मैं भी कोशिश करती हूँ थोड़ा सा अपने context से share करने के लिए, और I think I will mostly validate जो points गरिमा ने रखे in terms of engagement कैसा होना चाहिए, ecosystem क्या होना चाहिए, कैसे हम जो कहते हैं कि एक macro picture को micro picture से connect करें. तो I'll just share a few of my reflections. सबसे पहला disclaimer ये है कि I am not a development sector person. I am a teacher educator. Basically, that's my prime identity. और आज मुझे नई identity मिली. Nobody has ever introduced me like this, So thank you very much for that. I think when you appreciate something in somebody, you reinforce that, because that becomes a part of your identity. So thank you for reinforcing that. I joined Wipro in 2019. And so what is the mandate we started with? हमारा vision ये था कि हम एक robust ecosystem create करना चाहते हैं, बहुत ही capable, competent civil society organizations का. And what I'm going to share with you in my role, generally मेरा काम ये मैं बताना इसलिए ज़रूरी समझ रही हूँ ताकि मेरे रिफ्लेक्शंस कहाँ से आ रहे हैं उसका कॉन्टेक्स्ट भी होना ज़रूरी है. तो यूजुअली जो हम काम करते हैं वो क्या है कि जो भी हमारी पार्टनर ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं हम उन्हें विज़िट करते हैं, उनसे बातचीत करते हैं. ज़्यादातर हम कोशिश करते हैं कि हमारी कॉन्वर्जेशन ज़्यादा रिफ्लेक्टिव हों, ऐसे नहीं क्या आउटकम्स अचीव किए और क्या क्या टारगेट्स हैं, नॉट लाइक दैट. बट I think grants is just an enabler for us. What we strive to develop with our partners are deep, high trust relationship. क्योंकि जो ये पूरा मुद्दा है capacity building का, if we have committed, it's a very relational process. जब तक आपका रिश्ता नहीं होगा तब तक कोई capacity building नहीं हो सकती. क्योंकि आप जो और जिस स्पेस की हम पर्टिकुलरली बात कर रहे हैं, वेल बीइंग स्पेस, दिस इज़ फंडामेंटली अ वेरी रिलेशनल कॉन्सेप्ट, वेदर इट्स रिलेशन टू सेल्फ, रिलेशन टू the ecosystem, to multiple stakeholders. And I think because people who are working in the development space can really relate to it. कि the first thing when we begin to वर्क कि हमें इस कम्युनिटी की, इस बच्चे की, स्कूल की कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग करनी है, तो आई थिंक द फर्स्ट थिंग वी बिगिन विद इज बिल्डिंग अ रैपो, ट्रांसलेटिंग इनटू अ हेल्दी हाई ट्रस्ट रिलेशनशिप. And that's precisely what we try to demonstrate. In my journey, these two things happened little parallelly, because if you remember this whole space of C learnings, socio-emotional ethical learning, नेहा ने हमें सिखाया था कि C learning नहीं बोलना. Socio-emotional ethical learning also happened in 2019, right? And then COVID stuck, and there is so much I learned about practicing socio-emotional ethical learning and the different tools it gave, as if it was like a design that you were just prepared for something like this. I'm sharing this that's where ये चीज़ें बहुत surface हुई, जो बहुत सारी tensions, uncertainty, anxieties, जो हमारे inner core और sense of well-being को disturb करती हैं. And at Wipro we made this special focused effort, because when we were having conversation, the first thing is schools are closed, we can't do anything, and that underlying anxiety कि हम आपको क्या बताएं, and firstly that had to be put at rest, and I think that was a very value creating experience for us, and we realized that how critical this space is, जहाँ non-judgmental, high-trust conversations हो सके, जहाँ आप अपने सामने बैठे वाल कोई भी जिससे बात कर रहे हैं, आपको कोई anxiety नहीं हो कि मेरी बात कैसे समझी जाएगी. And I think that maybe the COVID has gone, but what we learned from there is a part of our conversations now. So little thing like Garima mentioned, some of the practices, like you asked that well-being spaces and care for the caregivers. And we think that our partners are the caregivers, because they are the ones who are actually front-ending. And therefore, where are the spaces we can create for them where they can have these conversations about how they feel, what are their challenges, what are the tensions they are navigating, what are the struggles, what are their challenges. See, the thing is, we don't have all the answers, but I think just that space of conversations sometimes leads to very interesting resolution, and sometimes just this space is enough कि हम बात कर सकते हैं. Second, so ये spaces हम कहाँ create करते हैं? These are in our multiple conversations, and see, ecosystem में structures का होना बहुत ज़रूरी है. Oftentimes we lose the sight. हम ये तो बहुत focus करते हैं, ये program होना चाहिए, ये बात होनी चाहिए, लेकिन routines की एक बहुत बड़ी अहमियत है, because routines and structures shape organizations, and those routines and structures shape who people become. So I think we see a lot of value in having these periodic touch bases. And it's also about what are the kind of conversations. So I would just like to pull out one thing. I think this the well-being space का एक, जैसे हमने relational बात की, एक और बहुत fundamental tenet है, is to see other person as a human, not just in a certain role. So connecting with the common humanity is also what guides our relationship, which may mean, see, we, all of us are time-starved people. Our biggest enemy of everything is time nahi hai. But, we have found a lot of value in always making space for that. Whenever we connect with our partners, sometimes it's 1.5 hour call we spend just talking about who they are. Just introducing, sharing our vulnerabilities, creating the space that they can share their vulnerabilities. I think it goes a long way in creating a facilitating space. क्योंकि जब तक एक रिलेशनशिप में स्पेस नहीं है कि आप जो हैं वो ना बता पाएं, तो फिर आपकी कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग के कोई ऑथेंटिक बेसिस नहीं मिलते हैं. सो एंड आई थिंक हाउ यू रिस्पॉन्ड टू दोज वनरेबिलिटीज इज ऑल्सो वेरी क्रिटिकल. The other, I think, aspects that, and these are my personal reflections, maybe people in the organization can feel differently, but I feel in my role, I found some of these spaces very facilitative. And one more thing, that even creating communities of the partners, so that वो सब बात हमसे नहीं कर सकते, but there is a lot of support they can get from each other. So we also try and support some of these communities which are domain specific, regional, sometimes just seeing people feel, CSOs having similar challenges, just connecting them. I think all these spaces has helped to create a ecosystem or a culture of well-being. And I think in development sector, if we say the centricity is around people, then I think never losing sight of humanity, our common humanity, focusing on the relational aspect and making effort that these spaces are high trust, non-judgmental, can be very, very enabling. So these were few principles and reflections that I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was so, firstly, so graceful to see both of you talk. And with every incident, Garima, that you were sharing, Shabda, I was thinking of a moment where I have shared that with you, be it at, the Delhi school where you turned up at the event. I remember the conversations on that day, and as well as Shabda with you. The very many times where we've been on call and you've just getting to know us. And these are such foundational, basic things which you highlighted. And thank you so much for sharing your perspective on this. So from the audience, we would see, agar kisi ke paas koi sawal hai, one question for Garima and one question for Shabda. या आप रेजोनेट करते हो कोई ऐसी थॉट जो इन्होंने बात रखी, वो भी आप कह सकते हैं. या वी आर जॉइंड बाय ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस लाइक ड्रीम अ ड्रीम, अनुभूति. हाँ जी, पीछे.
हेलो, सॉरी, जस्ट चेकिंग. मेरा सवाल बहुत सिंपल सा है. मतलब आई नो कि सोशल इमोशनल लर्निंग के स्पेस में काफ़ी लोग काम कर रहे हैं, एंड आई जस्ट वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड कि बिकॉज आई एम ऑल्सो वेरी न्यू टू दिस स्पेस, आई वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड कि कितना इंक्लूसिव है ये स्पेस, सोशल इमोशनल लर्निंग इंक्लूसिव. क्या मैं खड़ी हो जाऊँ? सॉरी. आई नो, या विजिबिलिटी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. यू कैन सी मी, आई कैन सी यू much better. Yes. So yeah, inclusion is also this. We are able to see each other. इससे पहले I was working in especially the disability and deaf education sector, और मतलब उस perspective से मैं पूछ रही हूँ कि क्या हम इसको inclusive बना सकते हैं? Because हम लोग वैसे काफ़ी inclusive हैं, मगर क्या we can also include persons with disability, deaf people, have sign language. ये कॉन्वर्सेशन वहाँ तक पहुँचा है या नहीं पहुँचा है, और पहुँच सकता है क्या? जस्ट दैट.
ये सवाल का जवाब मुझे नहीं लगता कि मैं दे पाऊँगी. एट द पॉइंट ऑफ दिस कि क्या ऐसे कुछ टूल्स एग्जिस्ट करते हैं. कैन यू हियर मी? कि क्या, I mean, I'm looking at what you've asked at two levels. One is whether we can do it. Definitely we can do it. And in some of our partner organizations, we have seen, I can like quote so many examples where if we come from the tenets of socio-emotional ethical learning, क्योंकि socio-emotional ethical learning एक framework है, लेकिन ये कुछ ऐसी चीज़ें हैं जो पहले एग्जिस्ट करती थी, लाइक कंपैशन, एम्पैथी, इंटरकनेक्टेडनेस, Also social responsibility. So if I base my response on that, I think हमने अपने बहुत सारे organization जो इस space में काम कर रहे हैं disability space में, we have seen them practice some of these principles with children, with the caregivers, with the parents, with their community. As far as the tools are concerned, so the response is yes, and also I would say we have seen it happen on the ground also. Whether there are certain tools, which are more amenable to be used, I think we have also seen some tools which we have seen some of the organizations use during their interactions. But whether particularly in the context of socio-emotional ethical learning, I think I am not too sure what's the status now.
I just want to add, because we also work with a couple of partners who are providing, working with people, children with disability. And what I've seen, whether there has been a separate curriculum, so to say, that has been adapted to be applicable with students, or persons with disability, I've seen within their own training programs, these organizations are very actively ensuring, like specifically I remember during the COVID times, because the educators or the facilitators who were working with, children with disability, they were, the organizations ensured that there were sessions and well-being sessions, workshops for the educators, facilitators who were working with children with disability. Not just that, now I've lately seen that even within the schools, I'm not sure if it within the government's schools yet, but I've started hearing that in the same classroom, how to bring inclusive, how to be more inclusive in a classroom setup, and how can a teacher be well equipped to work with students both, who are not persons with disability or students with disability, how to be more compassionate towards that child. So whether there are specific tools that have still been adapted to for teachers, I'm not sure about that, but I see that this is possible. If I talk about that, there is definitely a possibility.
May I just take a minute more? So one is the tool, the other is at practice level. So हो सकता है कि वो वैसा framework नहीं हो, लेकिन कुछ practices जो हमने उनके interactions में, classrooms में देखे, is like check-in activity, check-out activity, highlighting the emotion, connecting with self, तुम्हें कैसा लग रहा है, और empathy in the classroom, like being more supportive, understanding the other कि अगर वो ऐसा कर रहा है तो क्यों कर रहा है, या उसको state करना. ये कुछ practices we have seen irrespective of the fact कि वो inclusive classroom है या only a special school. I think, and it's like a culture of interaction basically. And in some spaces we have seen it getting practiced.
Thank you for the question as well. One more question के लिए space है. Yes.
सबसे पहले तो मैम नमस्कार आप दोनों को. जैसा कि आप लोगों ने अभी अपना अनुभव साझा किया, जिसको सुनकर मैं कहीं ना कहीं चीज़ फील कर पा रहा था कि मतलब कि कैसे रहा होगा वो चीज़. तो मैं सिर्फ यहाँ की बात नहीं करूँगा, मैंने मतलब कई जगह सुना है सेफ़ स्पेस, है ना, कि हमें ये चीज़ सेफ़ स्पेस में करनी चाहिए, या फिर हम कुछ कर रहे हैं तो सेफ़ स्पेस होना चाहिए. तो मतलब आप लोग उसे कैसे परिभाषित करते हैं? सेफ़ स्पेस की आपकी मतलब आपके लिए क्या उसकी परिभाषा है? एक परिवार के सदस्य के साथ या फिर एक दोस्त के साथ, अगर मैं अभी यहाँ पर हूँ तो मैं क्या अपने सेफ़ स्पेस में हूँ? मैं अपने आप को कैसे ये चीज़ समझा सकता हूँ कि भाई अभी मैं सेफ़ स्पेस में हूँ या नहीं हूँ? या फिर कोई मुझसे पूछता है, अगर मैं किसी को बताता हूँ अबाउट सेफ़ स्पेस, उसने मुझसे पूछा कि सेफ़ स्पेस से आप क्या समझते हैं, तो मैं क्या शेयर कर सकता हूँ? मेरा क्वेश्चन आपसे है.
Thank you.
अगर मैं इसको, thank you for that question. What's your good name? Sumit. So, Sumit, thanks for the question. This is a, तो आप जैसे पूछ रहे थे तो I was thinking, yeah, it's something we need to think about. क्योंकि कुछ ऐसे terms होते हैं जो बड़े internalize हो जाते हैं. It like becomes your embodied knowledge. And then कोई बाद में पूछे कि इसका क्या मतलब है तो it becomes a challenge. जैसे कि मैं आज ही का एक्सपीरियंस आपके लिए कहती हूँ कि क्या मैं यहाँ सेफ स्पेस, क्या मेरे लिए ये सेफ स्पेस है, तो आई वुड से यस, क्योंकि मतलब मुझे क्या कोई एंजाइटी महसूस हो रही है कि मेरे बारे में सब क्या सोच रहे हैं, नहीं, क्या मेरे मन में कोई टेंशन है या अनसर्टेनिटी है इस बात को लेके कि मैं कुछ ठीक बोलूँगी या नहीं बोलूँगी, उसके रिस्पॉन्स में मुझसे कोई गलती ना हो जाए, तो आई वुड से नहीं, ऐसा मुझे नहीं फील हो रहा. देर इज़ अ ट्रस्ट, आई फील जॉय, आई एम फीलिंग कि मैं बिना किसी डायनामिक्स के अपनी बात रख सकती हूँ. देर इज़ नो अनसर्टेनिटी, there is no anxiety, I am not feeling judged, और ये भी लगा कि because all the practitioners who have come here are coming in this space, they understand socio-emotional ethical learning, so I'm also feeling very safe कि अगर कोई बहुत गलती भी होगी तो कोई बात नहीं, सब समझ जाएंगे. And just this feeling where I feel safe कि मैं अपनी vulnerability, आप शब्द समझते, वर्नेबिलिटी का मतलब ये होता है कि जो मुझे लगता है कि मैं नहीं ठीक से कर पा रही हूँ या मैं उसको भी एक्सप्रेस कर दूँ और फिर मेरे को कोई जज नहीं करे. तो आई थिंक मेरी परिभाषा यही होगी कि जहाँ मैं मेंटली, फिज़िकली, साइकोलॉजिकली, सोशली, इमोशनली सेफ फील करूँ, जिसमें मेरे मन में कोई एंग्जाइटी नहीं हो. और बायोलॉजिकल टर्म्स में होता है कि कुछ भी मेरा फ्राइट और फ्लाइट ट्रिगर नहीं करे कि मैं यहाँ से भाग जाऊँ फटाफट. हाँ, सो आई थिंक दैट काइंड ऑफ अ स्पेस इज़ व्हाट आई feel is a safe space, and I am experiencing joy and happiness. That also, I think. Very well.
No, I just want to add like quickly, जब आपने flight or fright बोला ना, मेरे mind में भी ये आ रहा था. I remembered कि बचपन में in school में I used to prepare or stand in front of an audience and for a debate or a recitation. I remember मेरे हाथ बहुत sweaty हो जाते थे and I used to feel cold at that time, I remember. And abhi, like when I was speaking today, I was feeling completely normal because I think the reason, you know, हम एक term use करते हैं social emotional ethical learning में, body literacy, कि आपकी body जवाब दे देती कि आप safe feel कर रहे हैं, नहीं कर रहे हैं, या फिर आप उस situation से भागना चाहते हैं. तो definitely इस moment में तो मैं situation से भागना नहीं चाहती.
Thank you for that question. We had another hand raised. Maybe, okay, maybe if anyone has any more questions, you can please put them down on the cards. Because every question is important and we definitely collate them, get more viewpoints of the panelists today and share that all with you again. So thank you so much, Garima, Shabda. I mean, yes, please, you can clap. I think the road ahead looks great. The road ahead for people to support us through the philanthropist perspective and also to the training and making organizations feel that जो वो कर रहे हैं गलत नहीं कर रहे, कहीं से तो शुरुआत करें. And it all begins with trust. That's my biggest takeaway with this conversation. Thank you so much. Yeah. So yeah, over to Anshika.
Thank you so much, Soumya, Shabda and Garima. It was such a wonderful experience to hear these two along with Soumya. The thing that stood with me the most was two sharings, one of from Garima and one of was from Shabda. जब गरिमा ने बोला कि एक टीचर को सुनने के बाद मतलब उसने ये शेयर किया कि हम बहुत सपोर्टेड महसूस करते हैं जब हमसे कोई मिलने आता है, और ठीक वैसे ही उसी से मिलता जुलता शब्दा ने ये बात रखी कि कनेक्शन कैसे एक नींव है किसी भी इनोवेशन को भी शुरू करने से पहले. आई थिंक कनेक्शन इज द मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग, द फाउंडेशन दैट स्टार्ट्स द इनोवेशन, द आइडिया. मेरे को अभी इतना अच्छा महसूस हो रहा है ये सुनने के बाद. आई एम जस्ट वेटिंग फॉर द नेक्स्ट पैनल टू स्टार्ट. सो गोइंग अहेड नाउ आई वुड लाइक टू इनवाइट Neha and the speakers. Yeah. Neha and the speakers from educators panel. Before that, we would also take a time of 2 minutes to take a pause and absorb the energy. You can also write down if you feel something after this panel. जो भी आप लोग को लिखना है लिख लेंगे. उसके बाद the stage will be transferred to someone else. Okay, so welcoming the speakers and also the moderator of our next panel. The next panel is हम सबका चहीता एजुकेटर पैनल जिसके लिए हम यहाँ पे मिले हैं. Let's hear in the educators inside hub what's cooking inside that. Let me introduce you the moderator of this panel, Neha from the head of C Learning, जो हमारे साथ को ट्रैवलर रही हैं. It wouldn't be wrong if I say कि उन्होंने हम सबको हम यहाँ पे मौजूद बहुत सारे लोगों को कंपैशन के बारे में सिखाया कि कैसे खुद के साथ कंपैशनेट होना है और दूसरों के साथ भी. थैंक यू सो मच नेहा फॉर दैट. द स्टेज इज योर्स.
हेलो, नमस्ते. बोर हो रहे हो कि मज़ा आ रहा है? हाँ, मज़ा आ रहा है अब तक. ठीक है. तो ये पैनल स्टार्ट करने से पहले ना मेरी अपनी वेलबींग जर्नी में एक चीज़ जो मेरे लिए बहुत हेल्पफुल रही है, और जब मुझे सबसे पहले किसी ने ये बताया था तो मुझे बहुत ऑकवर्ड लगा था करने में, बट मैं चाहूँगी कि हम सब करें थोड़ा सा अपनी, क्योंकि बहुत सारी चर्चा हुई है, बहुत बातें हुई है. हमने पॉज लिया पर वो पॉज जैसा नहीं लगा मुझे. तो एक चीज़ जो हम करेंगे, आप में से कितने लोगों को हग रिसीव करना पसंद है? हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू लाइक बीइंग हग्ड? यस, ओके. इफ यू लाइक बीइंग हग्ड, हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू एवर हग्ड योरसेल्फ? ओके, क्वाइट अ फ्यू ऑफ यू. ऑल राइट. तो अभी सवाल ये है कि अगर आपने अपने आप को कभी भी हग नहीं किया है तो आज मौका है आपके पास अपने आप को हग करने का. ठीक है? कैसे करते हैं हग? सबको आता है, राइट? सो आई वांट ऑल ऑफ यू, ईच वन ऑफ यू टू हग योरसेल्फ. हाँ, और होल्ड करना उसको. ठीक है? एंड ट्राई टू गिव योरसेल्फ द टाइटेस्ट हग पॉसिबल, like सबसे tight. And on the count of 3 you can release. 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Okay, so with that हम यहाँ पर गैदर हुए हैं हमारे एजुकेटर्स से बात करने के लिए. आप लोगों को बता दूं मैं एजुकेटर नहीं हूँ, इसीलिए मुझे यहाँ रखने के बजाय यहाँ रखा गया है कि मैं सवाल पूछूं. ठीक है? तो वेरी क्विकली मैं सबसे पहले बताना चाहती हूँ, मैं बहुत ही खुश हूँ कि यूजुअली मैं जब कॉन्फ्रेंसेस में जाती हूँ, व्हेन आई गो टू कॉन्फ्रेंसेस एंड आई एम एन ऑडियंस और पैनल को देखती हूँ, तो बहुत सारे मेल होते हैं और एक फीमेल होती हैं, हाँ, और कई बार तो what we call manel, there are only men and it's a panel. But I'm very, very, very happy that there are 4 very, very beautiful individuals here, all women. So I'm very happy to have all of you here. Yay! Yes. दूसरी बात, मैं सबसे पहले आप लोगों को इंट्रोड्यूस करा देती हूँ. शब्दा जी से अभी अभी आप मिले हैं तो मैं वहाँ से स्टार्ट करती हूँ. शब्दा जी से मेरी प्रोफेशनल मुलाकात हुई थी, लेकिन अब मैं बहुत कॉन्फिडेंटली कह सकती हूँ कि अब हमारी दोस्ती हो चुकी है और वो हम दोस्त हैं. बट आप में से कई लोगों को पता नहीं होगा, शब्दा जी वेयर्स मैनी हैट्स. हाँ, उनके बहुत सारे अलग अलग किरदार हैं. तो मुझे भी जानने में, डिस्कवर करने में कुछ समय लगा. बिकॉज व्हेन आई फर्स्ट मेट हर, आई मेट हर थ्रू एन इंस्टीट्यूशन ऑफ स्कूल्स. तो मुझे लगा वो स्कूल के लिए काम करती हैं. फिर मैं कहीं और मिली उनको, तो वो विप्रो फाउंडेशन की रिप्रेजेंटेटिव बन के आई. तो मुझे लगा ओके, मे बी शी इज़ कंसल्टिंग विद दैट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. देन वन अदर प्लेस आई मेट हर इन अ वेरी पर्सनल कॉन्टेक्स्ट. तो अरे यहाँ पे भी शब्दा जी हैं. तो what I'm trying to say is that she works with a lot of organizations. तो मेधा फाउंडेशन है, विप्रो फाउंडेशन है, बहुत सारे टीचर ट्रेनिंग इंस्टीट्यूट्स के साथ वो काम कर चुकी हैं. वो खुद एक टीचर, एजुकेटर और टीचर रह चुकी हैं. शी इज़ बिन अ प्रोफेसर एट APU if I'm not wrong, and Punjab University, yeah, and Kurukshetra University. I read that in your profile. Yes, so many universities. तो एजुकेटर हैं, लेकिन आज ख़ास मकसद इनका यहाँ पर आने का, इस पैनल में हिस्सा होने का, एजुकेटर हैट तो है ही, लेकिन ये मेरा पर्सनल एक सॉर्ट ऑफ एजेंडा है कि एजुकेटर के वेलबींग की हम बात तो कर सकते हैं. वी कैन टॉक अबाउट एजुकेटर वेलबींग, बट इट इज़ इंडिविजुअल्स लाइक शब्दा जी एंड मैनी ऑफ अस हियर इन द रूम who make educator well-being possible. हाँ, तो educator well-being हो पाने के लिए भी बहुत सारे लोग होते हैं, और शब्दा जी उनमें से एक हैं. सो वेलकम शब्दा जी. थैंक यू. देन वी हैव तान्या. तो तान्या से मैं कल पहली बार मिली हूँ. हाँ, मिली भी मतलब फ़ोन पे मिली हूँ, तो सिर्फ बात हुई है. बट आई मस्ट टेल यू, आई थॉरली एन्जॉयड टॉकिंग टू यू तान्या. और आपको इस पैनल के एंड तक समझ में आ जाएगा कि क्यों मुझे मज़ा आया. बिकॉज उनके जो इंसाइट्स है या उनकी जो एक्सपीरियंस है, और मैं थोड़ा सा दिमाग में देखो आ ही जाता है ना, एजिज़म. तब इतने सारे उनके एक्सपीरियंस में उनके पास चीज़ें हैं. बिकॉज शी इज़ ट्रेन साइकोलॉजिस्ट, आर्ट्स फैसिलिटेटर. वो ड्रीम फाउंडेशन के साथ काम करती हैं, और इस पैनल के थ्रू आपको और चीज़ें पता चलेंगी उनके बारे में और उनकी सोच के बारे में. वेलकम तान्या. और फिर हमारे साथ हैं मोनिका मैम. मोनिका मैम से मैं दिसंबर में मिली थी, हमारी जब एक सी लर्निंग की फ़िल्म शूट हो रही थी. वो MCD की स्कूल में, ईस्ट दिल्ली में स्कूल है ना. शी इज़ वन ऑफ द एजुकेटर्स, बट clearly she was one of the champion teachers there. I remember meeting her very warmly, but also seeing her with her own students in action. तो मैंने उनको क्लासरूम में भी देखा है, and I'm very glad that she is able to join us today. And very cliche, last but not the least, प्रियंका. प्रियंका के साथ मेरी लंबी स्टोरी है, मैं सारी नहीं सुनाऊंगी, लेकिन प्रियंका भी मेरे साथ कहीं कनेक्शन से सी लर्निंग की वजह से मिली है, लेकिन अब वो मेरी दोस्त हो गई है. और मुझे लगता है ये वेलबींग स्पेस वाले जो हम सब हैं ना, हम सारे इस रूम में, हम धीरे पर्सनल एंड प्रोफेशनल रिलेशनशिप्स एंड बाउंड्रीज जस्ट ब्लर, because we all become friends very soon, friends, allies, supporters, all of that, right? तो प्रियंका ब्लूबेल्स स्कूल इंटरनेशनल में लाइफ स्किल्स एजुकेटर हैं, और उनकी जर्नी बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग रही है. मैं बहुत इंस्पायर्ड हूँ उनकी जर्नी से, बिकॉज वो ट्रेंड एजुकेटर नहीं हैं, लेकिन उनकी जो सीखने की इच्छा होती है ना, वो मैंने देखी है, वो इतनी ज़्यादा है. कई बार हम इरिटेट भी हो जाते हैं कि वो इतनी बार फ़ोन करके फॉलो अप कर लेती हैं, लेकिन समवन हु रियली हैज़ अ लॉट ऑफ एंथुजियाज्म एंड ज़ील टू लर्न, और उसी के चलते वो आज एक इंटरनेशनल स्कूल में अपनी एक जगह बना पाई हैं, राइट. सो शी हैज़ अ डॉटर हु गोज़ टू दैट स्कूल, बट नाउ शी इज़ अ टीचर इन दैट स्कूल. NVC, Peace Education, now C Learning. So she is constantly on that journey of learning and growth. Thank you so much for joining us. तो जब मैं इन सब से बात कर रही थी, I spoke to them all individually, and then I was trying to make sense of their experience and sort of panel में क्या होगा. तो एक common चीज़ बहुत निकल के आई है, and I want to invite all of you to share on that. जो मुझे इनकी शेयरिंग में समझ में आया कि वेल बीइंग रिलेटेड प्रैक्टिसेस जब वो कर रहे हैं अपनी लाइफ में, you know, when they're practicing well-being for themselves, there is a certain shift or change in their relationships that they're experiencing. Their relationships with themselves, relationships with others, relationships with students, community, family, loved ones. Each one of them told me stories around how some relationship or the other has transformed, or there's some shift in relationships. So one by one, if all of you can share personal anecdotes, तो अपनी अपनी कहानी बताना कि कैसे well-being practice करने की वजह से आपके ज़िंदगी में, रिश्तों में कोई एक certain पॉजिटिव चेंज या इन्फ्लुएंस हुआ है. और लाइन में जाने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. whoever is ready can start. I can see Tanya is.
ओके सो सबसे पहले मैं वेलबींग को थोड़ा डीकंस्ट्रक्ट करना चाहूँगी कि वेलबींग है क्या. एक ऐसी स्थिति जहाँ पे हम हर तरीके के इमोशंस, भावनाओं को कंटेन कर पा रहे हैं. जैसे एक भगोना होता है, उसमें आप चाहे सॉलिड डालो या लिक्विड डालो या रसमिसा डालो, वो कंटेन कर लेता है एक कंटेनर. उसी तरीके से वेलबींग भी एक स्थिति है, एक स्पेक्ट्रम पे लाई करता है. कभी हम इधर होते हैं, कभी इधर होते हैं, कभी इधर होते हैं. तो मेरे लिए वेलबींग प्रैक्टिस करना है बस वो एक कंटेनर बनना खुद के लिए, ताकि हर तरीके के इमोशंस की जागरूकता हो मेरे मन के अंदर, अवेयरनेस हो, और उनके साथ में कैसे रिस्पॉन्ड करना चाहूँगी वो भी मेरे हाथ में हो. वो एक स्थिति को मैं वेलबींग डिफ़ाइन करती हूँ अपने लिए. नाउ हाउ प्रैक्टिसिंग दिस अवेयरनेस विच आई कॉल वेलबींग कैसे मदद किया है. तो कई बार मैंने अक्सर नोटिस किया कि जब मैं ट्रेनिंग्स में जाती हूँ, फैसिलिटेट करती हूँ ट्रेनिंग्स को, जो मैं महसूस कर रही हूँ उसका बहुत प्रभाव पड़ता है मेरे ऑडियंस के ऊपर. अगर मैं डिसरेगुलेटेड महसूस कर रही हूँ तो शायद मेरी ऑडियंस में अगर कोई ऐसा रेजिस्टेंट पर्सन है, या फिर कोई बहुत बोलने वाला इंसान है, या फिर कोई बिल्कुल ना बोलने वाले भी ऑडियंस हैं, तो मैं शायद गुस्सा हो जाऊँ, या फिर स्नैप कर दूँ, या फिर उनको बोल दूँ कि किसी तरीके से वो बाहर शायद अपनी स्थिति को, उस वेलबींग की स्थिति को और अच्छे से क्लोजली मॉनिटर किया है. उतना ही मैं एक्सेप्ट कर पा रही हूँ अपने ट्रेनिंग स्पेस में जो भी हो रहा है, जो भी मेरी ऑडियंस, जो भी मेरे पार्टिसिपेंट्स, लर्नर्स, टीचर्स मुझे दे रहे हैं, चाहे वो रेजिस्टेंस हो, चाहे वो कंट्रोल हो, चाहे वो एक्सेप्टेंस हो, चाहे वो क्यूरियोसिटी हो, चाहे वो इन्जॉयमेंट हो. मैं उसको कंटेन कर कर, उसको समझ कर, उसको रिकग्नाइज कर कर, उसको एक्सेप्ट कर कर उनको और ऑफ़र कर पा रही हूँ बेहतर तरीके से. सो दैट्स हाउ आई अंडरस्टैंड कि मेरे पर्सनल जर्नी में कैसे वेलबींग प्रैक्टिस मेरे लिए काम की है. आई थिंक इट जस्ट हेल्प्स मी बी मोर ऑथेंटिक. जो मैं हूँ वो मैं हूँ, और मेरे ऑथेंटिक होने से मेरे सामने वाले भी ऐसा महसूस करते हैं कि हाँ, हमें देखा और सुना जा रहा है। तो जितना मैं खुद को देखूंगी और सुनूंगी, उतना ही मैं अपने सामने वाले इंसान को, चाहे वो मेरे स्पाउस हों या फिर मेरे बच्चे हों या फिर मेरे कॉलीग्स हों, उतना ही वो भी सीन और हर्ड महसूस करेंगे। तो ये मेरा पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस है वेलबींग प्रैक्टिस को लेकर।
Okay, I have a range of experiences and a lot of transformations. And I remember, as Neha posed this question also, I'm thinking which one to really share, because clearly there's been shifts and transformations across various relationships, as also Tanya mentioned. What clearly comes to me is something that I experienced very recently, and I'm going to share that little story with all of you. So ये कहानी मेरे स्कूल की ही है, and this is an actual thing that happened. So I've been teaching primary children for last six years, but it was only last 2 years that I've started interacting with middle school children. And I thought it would be a cakewalk, but it wasn't. It was a very difficult stride to take on. Many challenges, very, very different scenario. In middle than how it is in primary. तो मुझे, just because I was on this journey of well-being, I think I was equipped to deal with those challenges. I remember walking into a classroom and, with full enthusiasm and energy with the concept that I'm going to take, and I thought to myself, that's going to be excellent, only to see class all over the place, like kids who are not listening to me, and yet because of these practices, I was able to empathize with the children. I was able to understand. And I would just ask myself, perhaps, what is it that the child is needing? Can I shift it in a different way? Can I present it in a different way? And so each and every class, and this continued for about a year, and, to my understanding, I felt the children had not connected with me. And like in every class, there are this bunch of about 2-3 children who pose that extra challenging time for all of you. It was just 3 weeks back when, and these children have now moved to class 8, and there was a situation where there is a lot of violence being reported in these classrooms. And so, all the teachers, the class teachers and the administration are sitting down to see कि अब क्या करना है. And I also had a very informal बातचीत मैंने की क्लास में कि चल क्या रहा है. और बच्चों ने बोला कि हाँ, हम मार रहे हैं, हम ऐसी भाषा यूज़ कर रहे हैं, हम ये सब कर रहे हैं, हमें बहुत मज़ा आ रहा है. जबकि कई बच्चे मेरे पास आ रहे थे who were victims कि मैम, I'm being bullied. So and so is saying such and such thing to me. I don't feel safe in my classroom. Which was normal कि एक victim, एक बच्चा तुम्हें आके ये बात बता रहा है. The turning moment for me was one evening as I was working around, and I get this mail from a student saying that, ma'am, I need to see you tomorrow morning. It's very urgent. And I just wondered, this was one of those 4 children. And I wondered to myself, how do I prepare myself for this meeting? What is it that this child has to say? And the next morning, I organized with his class teacher that this child will come forward and meet with me. And he says, I don't know what happened to me in last 3-4 days. I just felt you were the one who would understand, and you were the one who could help me. He says, I'm the one who is the bully. I'm the one who's creating all this trouble in the school. I need help. And I think you're the one who can help me. I don't believe in all what you say in the class. I don't believe in the practices. But I have this faith that there is something that you'll do that will help me. So here I am. And he brought another friend of him who was waiting outside. He says, both of us have been into this way too much, and we really seek your support. And as I sit here today, just about 2.5 weeks of every day spending about 20 minutes with this child, only working on his strengths, um, there is a transformation, there is a shift from where I would feel little nervous entering the classroom. I feel so supported as I enter the classroom because this child has become like my support system. So this is something that I've experienced recently, and I say this also, you know, I fill up because it is very magical. It is something that I kept thinking that is it working? It is not working, but it was big, it was huge. This is definitely working. And it also had a ripple effect as you know, as we talk about, and we'll talk about how educators have their issues in, you know, resonating with the concept. And I had these issues with their class teachers on bringing in, you know, the practices and all. When they saw this shift coming in this child, the class teacher came to me and said, "Ma'am, could you share certain practices that I could do with the classroom?" This is after I'd shared a lot of things and they refused to do, and this is the same teacher coming and saying that if you could share something, because we can see things are shifting. And just yesterday, this child's father had called out and said that he'd like to meet me and he would like to know how at home they can support in building up this positive shift that is coming into him. So this is a little story that I thought I'll share with you because personally I feel very touched, and I feel that there is one little movement that has happened in this classroom. Thank you.
I really felt very nice listening to the views of my colleagues. Thank you for giving me the privilege to speak with you people in front of you. Since I am connected to the kids, so I'll start with my kids. Since we were practicing C-learning and well-being practices, the major change I observed in my kids is that they have started coming up with me with a hug. When Neha told me that, have you ever hugged yourself? So I am very happy, like my day starts when I enter my school, my kids are ready with the hug to give me a hug. So that is, I find very happy to come to school. So she has now become regular, and she shares her feelings with me that why she was not coming, giving compassionate environment, a cozy environment and loving environment is very must for the kids. So I think kids are ready with you when you provide a very loving environment to them. So this is the must, I would say. I'm very, very connected to the kids. So they reciprocate. The best thing with the kids is that they reciprocate. So this is how we build our space, our classroom. We bring more results academically and all-round development. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Priyanka, Tanya, and Monica. I think listening to your stories, like I felt very much at home because I've like large part of my life I've spent talking to teachers. So thank you very much. As far as I think we जो टीचर्स होते हैं ना वो इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइज ही ऐसे होते हैं कि सबका ध्यान रखना है, स्कूल का रखना है, बच्चों का रखना है, प्रिंसिपल का रखना है, पेरेंट्स का रखना है। और कभी कभी जब टीचर्स के साथ बात की जाती है तो ये बात बहुत सारे टीचर्स ने शेयर भी किया है कि डॉक्यूमेंट्स में भी टीचर को बोलते हैं नेशन बिल्डर हैं, ये है, तो वो कहते हैं ये हमारे लिए बहुत प्रेशर क्रिएट करता है कि वी आर समवन लार्जर देन लाइफ। तो वन थिंग आई रियली डोंट नो, बट जिसमें मेरी हाइट, जिसे कहते हैं ना मेरा अवेयरनेस बढ़ा आफ्टर आई एनकाउंटर्ड सोशियो इमोशनल एथिकल लर्निंग, तो कभी कभी फ्रेमवर्क्स और टूल्स हमें एक तरफ ध्यान केंद्रित करने में भी मदद करते हैं. तो आई थिंक जो मैं खुद भी प्रैक्टिस कर पाई, क्योंकि मुझे लगा कि वो मुझ में भी उसकी फोकस नहीं था, विच इज़ सेल्फ केयर एंड सेल्फ कंपैशन. तो आई थिंक फर्स्ट आई प्रैक्टिस्ड इट माई सेल्फ. और मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि उससे मैंने अपनी सेंस ऑफ वेलबींग को काफ़ी इन्हांस किया. एंड बिकॉज आई एक्सपीरियंस दैट, I think I was able to, with lot of conviction and authenticity, bring this to the teachers I work with. तो वो focus की जितना हम इन सब चीज़ों पे ध्यान रखते हैं कि हम अपना रोल कैसे डेलीगेट कर रहे हैं, बच्चों का ध्यान रख रहे हैं, आई थिंक वो स्पेस क्रिएट कर पाना कि हमें सेल्फ केयर और कंपैशन की भी ज़रूरत है, जिसमें बहुत छोटी छोटी चीज़ें हैं. अपने लिए कुछ एक रूटीन सेट करना, कि यू एक्सरसाइज, यू ईट ऑन टाइम. मोस्ट ऑफ द टीचर्स डोंट ईट ऑन टाइम. दैट्स वेरी इम्पॉर्टेंट. और आप देखेंगे कि जब वो 30-35 साल सर्विस करते हैं तो उनके घुटनों में दर्द होती है. उनको कुछ ये इर्रेगुलर फूड की वजह से कुछ हेल्थ इश्यूज भी होने लगते हैं. तो when I now get an opportunity to work with teachers or teacher educators or anybody who are more like caregivers, I think this has become more like a principle and starting point for me, which is working on self-care, self-compassion. Because I think if you have to run marathons, then ये चीज़ को glorify करना कि हमने खाना नहीं खाया, हम अपना कोई ध्यान नहीं रखते, और कभी कभी हम इन चीज़ों को इंस्टीट्यूशंस में ग्लोरीफाई करते हैं कि उन्हें हम एक अच्छे प्रोफेशनल की कैटेगरी में डालना शुरू करते हैं. एंड आई थिंक दैट इज़ वेरी वेरी अनहेल्दी. आई थिंक इफ़ यू आर रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर lives of some people, I will strongly urge all the leaders present here कि अपने इंस्टीट्यूशन में सेल्फ केयर और कंपैशन के लिए स्पेस क्रिएट ना इम्पॉर्टेंट है. लाइक पीपल ईट ऑन टाइम, दे गेट एडिक्वेट रेस्ट, स्लीप, and I think that enhances your productivity, so to say, although I really don't understand that word. But also, like, I think you have more happier human beings. So I've experienced it myself, and I've also helped many teachers shift these practices. तो जब कभी कुछ टीचर्स आके कहते हैं कि हमने अब जिम ज्वाइन कर लिया है और हम अपने लिए छोटे छोटे फ्रूट्स और उसके इंटरवल्स लेते हैं, I've joined a certain recreational activities, I think it's a win for me. Thank you.
Thank you. I could just end up hearing all of you all the time. I don't need to ask any more questions, but I do have some questions, one question each. So Monica ma'am, I'm going to start with you because of all the four, you are someone who has received a formal training in the well-being program. क्षमतालय की टीम आती है आपकी स्कूल में, आपको सपोर्ट करती है, और आप फॉर्मली अपने बच्चों तक वो चीज़ ले जा पा रहे हैं, इम्प्लीमेंट कर पा रहे हैं. तो मैं थोड़ा सा क्वेश्चन को ही फ्लिप करने वाली हूँ, क्योंकि आप उन सिलेक्टेड टीचर्स में से हैं, और यहाँ जितने भी लोग हैं वो अग्री करेंगे कि आप you're one of the few selected teachers who've received this opportunity, right? And I say this because I know that there are a lot of, I mean, all of us are working, all the organizations working in the area of social emotional learning or well-being anywhere closely will know that they're only able to touch some teachers, but there are so many other teachers in the country जिनके पास ये opportunity या access नहीं है. तो आप क्योंकि ये गवर्नमेंट स्कूल सिस्टम में काम करते हैं, तो अगर आप सिस्टम के हेड होते और अगर आपको मौका दिया जाता कि और टीचर्स के लिए सोशल इमोशनल लर्निंग या वेलबींग रिलेटेड चीज़ें आप अवेलेबल करा पाएँ, तो अभी करंट सिस्टम में आप ऐसा क्या बदलेंगे, क्या ऐड करेंगे, क्या निकालेंगे? मैथ निकाल सकते हैं जो भी मतलब whatever you think you can add or subtract from the existing system to make well-being available and possible for educators in everyday life. What would you do?
Well, I would love to answer this question because thank you, Neha, for asking this beautiful question. Okay. Taking to the point that if I were a change maker in the existing system of government or these programs taken care of, so the first thing I would have changed is to streamline the number of projects or programs that government has lined up for the kids. No doubt, government has done lots of reforms and they are in the terms of infrastructure, in the terms of programs, learnings, activities, seminars, but I would have majorly worked on the streamlining of these projects because to me I can see that at hierarchical level somehow the pressure has been created uh, from upper level to lower and this. So I would try to mitigate or to to lower that pressure and to allow teachers or the concerned persons dealing with the kids to work in their natural setting. So this would be my major step so that people would have, like, if people related to administration or teachers or parents working in their own natural setting and free from pressure, they would have given their best. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Because C-learning works both with public schools and private schools, I'm going to turn to you, Priyanka, because हमारी एक थोड़ी सी दुखती रग है. एक स्कूल, एक प्राइवेट स्कूल है, बहुत ही जाना माना, बहुत ही बड़ा स्कूल है. हम कहीं मिले थे और उन्होंने हमें सी लर्निंग करने के लिए अपनी स्कूल में इनवाइट किया और हम गए थे सी लर्निंग की ट्रेनिंग करने. शरण्या हंस रही है. तो मैनेजमेंट जो है स्कूल का वो बहुत एक्साइटेड था टू गेट सी लर्निंग, you know, because they really saw value in any well-being program. It could be C learning, it could be any other program, but they were excited, so they invited us. We did the training. They were very happy with the training. We did the administration was also very happy to make changes. मतलब टीचर के जो स्कूल कैलेंडर है उसमें चेंजेस करना, उसमें लिटरली हफ्ते में 2 बार वेलबींग रिलेटेड टाइम कैलेंडराइज करना, ये बहुत बड़ी बातें हैं. अभी बोलने में एक सेंटेंस लग रहा है, लेकिन स्कूल के सिस्टम में बहुत सारे छोटे बड़े चेंजेस कर पाना और फिर भी वेलबींग प्रोग्राम वर्क नहीं किया उस स्कूल में. वी वर नॉट एबल टू सक्सेसफुली इम्प्लीमेंट सी लर्निंग और द प्रोग्राम इन द स्कूल. So Priyanka, I want to ask you, what do you think are some of the challenges or barriers from a point of view of a teacher? Why is it that a teacher is not able to take or accept C-Learn, any well-being related program? Because it's a no-brainer for me, right? Like, at least I'm able to see or feel the need for it and the value, but I don't experience that in all teachers. So from a teacher's point of view, just enlighten us कि ऐसा क्यों है?
Yeah, I think it's a very, very valid question. In a space where we educators are more than often heard saying that, oh my God, we are so stressed. There is so much pressure, as Ma'am Shabda said, that, you know, we are almost the nation builders. And then here comes a great curriculum, a great program, which is not just for students, but also is a tool that can help us sort of take care of ourselves. Yet we are in that space where educators are resisting. At the onset, I think there are just few things that are coming to me. First of all, as educators, there is a lot of perceived time crunch. And I say it perceived because in our mind there is this chatter going on. There is this to be done, this to be done, this to be done, this to be done, which is to be done. But just doing a little practice will only help you organize that better or help you. You know, it is a support that can help you do better. So first thing that comes to my mind is this perceived time crunch. Next is, as Monica mentioned, you know, the overwhelm with the kind of initiatives that take place in schools. And any and every initiative that takes place has a responsibility onto some teacher or the other. And I say that again, you know, while there is that responsibility, here is a tool to support you with. Yet somehow that is missed. One of the very key things that I personally have fourth, well-being doesn't work in that manner. You know, we need to understand that well-being is a journey, it's not the end state. You know, and we're all partaking in that journey with our children. So if I think that I can just teach well-being, it won't happen. I have to experience it, and it will help me, and only then will I take it with that conviction in my classroom to my children. So in the realm of education, what I really feel is that well-being is not a module that can be taught and we move on. Well-being is that foundation that has to be woven into the tapestry of the entire curriculum so that it becomes really the culture. So well-being is really a series of practices. Well-being is really those series of choices. Well-being is my commitment to my personal growth and therefore to the growth of my children. I think this is something that we as educators are missing. And once we get through that, and you know, that inner calling that we were talking about, that felt sense, ki, mujhe chahiye, mujhe pata hai, but you know, I'm just not doing it. You know, that gap is something that we need to help our educators to cover. How we still need to figure out, do we set up a sort of a period for educators also to come and do a circle time before you really start off with your classes? I think something like this needs to maybe come into the school so that, you know, like I said, once you experience it at a personal level, you would know what it does. And then you would not want your children to miss it. Yeah, that's what I feel about it.
Thank you. Such nuggets of wisdom, but I know we're running short of time. So very quickly, I'm going to turn to the two of you. Tanya, I'll go with you first. You worked with sort of the intersection of mental health, education, also because you're a facilitator, so you bring in arts, you bring in all sorts of other alternative supportive tools. Simple question. What do you think educators truly need to practice well-being? है ना, बिकॉज प्रोग्राम्स है, मैनेजमेंट इज अग्रीड, सब लोग रेडी है, तो what does an educator need? And because you worked with so many educators across different sort of ages, different experiences, different areas, give us a insight into what is it that the educator really needs to practice well-being as part of their daily life.
Thank you. I think the moment you ask this question, the first word that comes to my mind is agency. एजेंसी को हिंदी में क्या बोलते हैं मैं शायद नहीं ट्रांसलेट कर पाऊँगी. एजेंसी मतलब आपके हाथ में हो डिसाइड करना, वो एक ऐसी स्थिति जब आपके हाथ में हो डिसीजन लेना, ऐसा पावर होना कि आप डिसाइड कर सकते हैं, उसको एजेंसी कहा जाता है. तो अब ये एजेंसी भी कैसे काम करती है, मतलब ऐसा नहीं है कि पावर ऑफ पोजीशन इंसान ने बोल दिया कि हाँ आप डिसाइड कर लो. आई थिंक वो एजेंसी भी वहाँ से आती है कि कितना पीपल एट पावर ऑफ पोजीशंस, जिनके पास मे बी HOS हैं, हेड ऑफ स्कूल्स हैं, वाइस प्रिंसिपल्स हैं, whosoever is at the leadership position, how significantly they make their teachers feel seen and heard. मतलब टीचर्स को कितना महसूस हो रहा है कि हाँ हम इस जगह पे बिलोंग करते हैं, हाँ हमें देखा जाता है, हाँ हमें सुना जाता है, हाँ हमारी आवाज़ मायने रखती है, our voice matters. A lot of it is to do with how safe do they feel. हमने सेफ्टी को भी डिकन्स्ट्रक्ट किया, जो सवाल पूछा गया था कि सेफ स्पेस होता क्या है, एंड आई थिंक वो कल्चर से आएगा, वो आपके होने में आएगा. तो करिकुलम सिर्फ एक ज़रिया है, कंटेंट है, लेकिन सर्कल टाइम भी एक ज़रिया है. लेकिन अब उस सर्कल टाइम में भी कोई ऐसा फैसिलिटेटर आ जाए जो टीचर्स को बहुत ही डंडा मार के सर्कल टाइम करवा रहा है, तो ऑफ कोर्स उनकी वेलबींग तो गई तेल लेने. So I think that's very important to just recognize कि whosoever is in a position of holding spaces, वो कितनी एजेंसी reinforce कर रहा है for the teachers to also feel seen and heard and take decisions by themselves. एक छोटा सा एग्जाम्पल दूंगी, आई नो वी आर शॉर्ट ऑन टाइम. मतलब अभी मैं ट्रेनिंग के लिए गई थी रांची में, गवर्नमेंट झारखंड गवर्नमेंट स्कूल के टीचर्स थे वहाँ पे. वी हैड अ ब्रिलियंट एक्सपीरियंस. मतलब ड्रीम की पेडागोजी भी कुछ ऐसी है जो बहुत ही खेल खेल में हम लोग एक्सपीरियंशियल लर्निंग के ज़रिए से बहुत कुछ खुद के करीब लाते हैं पार्टिसिपेंट्स को, जस्ट फॉर देम टू बी क्लोजर टू देमसेल्फ. सब हो गया, ट्रेनिंग ख़त्म हो गई. उसके बाद 2 टीचर आके मुझे कहते हैं, मैम आप जो कह रहे हैं, जो महसूस करा रहे हैं, वो तो सब ठीक है, लेकिन हम जहाँ वापस जा रहे हैं ना, वहाँ डर से सारी चीज़ें होती हैं. एवरीथिंग इज फंक्शनिंग विद द फियर. तो आई थिंक वो हटाने की ज़रूरत है हमें. और दैट्स व्हाट आई मीन व्हेन आई से कि जो भी पोजीशन होल्डर्स हैं वो अपने वेलबींग पे कितना काम कर रहे हैं, उसके ऊपर भी मायने रखता है कि वो सामने वाले के लिए कितनी स्पेस क्रिएट कर पाएंगे उस वेलबींग की, ताकि सामने वाला महसूस कर पाए कि वो बिलोंग करता है या उसको देखा सुना जा रहा है. So that's pretty much about it. I think we're also short on time, so I'll stop here.
आवाज आ रही है मेरी पीछे तक? हाँ, माइक आ गया मेरे पास. ओके, अच्छा यूट्यूब वालों को नहीं आएगी. ओके, सो थोड़ा सा हम क्लोजिंग की तरफ जा रहे हैं. और क्लोजिंग की तरफ एक रीज़न मैं शब्दा जी को ये सवाल लास्ट में पूछना चाह रही थी इज़ बिकॉज उनका एक्सपीरियंस, क्योंकि अलग अलग एजुकेशन के क्षेत्र में अलग अलग, मतलब यूनिवर्सिटी लेवल पे, स्कूल लेवल पे, फंडर लेवल पे है. तो शब्दा जी, ये सब बातें तो ठीक है, लेकिन वी ऑल नो कि एक टीचर की लाइफ बहुत मुश्किल है. हाँ, एक टीचर की लाइफ कठिन भी है, जिसमें उनको बहुत सारा प्रेशर है, बहुत सारा इन क्लास एंड आउटसाइड क्लास काम है, and additional pressure of learning, growing, staying relevant, constantly updating themselves. So there is a lot that a teacher is expected to do, है ना? तो ultimately तो teacher के पास, I mean, teacher is a human being, has 24 hours like all of us. In all of this, because you worked with education institutions, tell us what can institutions do to integrate this into their everyday life such that it's not one additional pressure for the teacher कि अरे यार one more क्या एक चीज और लेके आ गए, वैसा ना हो, but something that the system can do to make this everyday well-being every day a reality, है ना? बिकॉज जब तक वो एवरीडे रियलिटी नहीं बनेगा, हम सब बातें कर सकते हैं बड़ी बड़ी यहाँ पे आके वेलबींग की, वो टीचर की जिंदगी में नहीं आएगा और वो टीचर को मौका ही नहीं मिलेगा उसको प्रैक्टिस और एक्सपीरियंस करने का. तो क्या कर सकता है सिस्टम, क्या कर सकता है, या इंस्टीट्यूशंस क्या कर सकते हैं इसको इंटीग्रेट करने के लिए?
ये बहुत बड़ा सवाल है. So I'm wondering कि तो firstly I like to मैं कोशिश करूँगी कि मैं कुछ मीनिंगफुल कह पाऊँ, क्योंकि कभी कभी जब बहुत कुछ कहना होता है तब समझ नहीं आता कि क्या इम्पोर्टेंट है शेयर करना. तो एक बात तो आई विल बिगिन विद सेइंग कि जो आपने सिस्टमिक इम्प्लीमेंटेशन की बात की ना, और वो बात मैंने आपके नोट में भी पढ़ी कि जो नीडल शिफ्ट होगी ना या टाइड विल बिगिन, वो इंडिविजुअल्स लेवल पर कोशिश करने से ठीक है वो 40 बच्चों को या एक इंसान को होगा, लेकिन सिस्टमिक लेवल पर तब तक नहीं होगा जब तक सब स्टेक होल्डर्स अलाइन हो. तो एक जो एग्जाम्पल मेरे दिमाग में आ रहा है वो ये कि आप गाड़ी में बहुत अच्छे टायर लगा दीजिए, उसका बहुत अच्छा इंजन कर दीजिए, उसमें बहुत एक्सेसरीज लगा दीजिए, लेकिन और उसके सारे टायर अलग अलग दिशा में जाएं, जो हम कहते हैं ना अलाइनमेंट कार्स की बड़ी इम्पॉर्टेंट होती है, स्पेशली वो जाके की जाती है वर्कशॉप में. वो बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है क्योंकि देन इट विल नॉट मूव इफ or there will be lot of friction, resistance, and the wheels begin to burn out. Thank you so much all for sharing your stories. I think I'll probably like to bring a different perspective to you where a success turned into failure. So it's not really leaving you at a sad note, but I think it's important to understand कि it might give us some useful insights. और मैं अभी तक उस पूरे एक्सपीरियंस पे रिफ्लेक्ट कर रही हूँ कि what was it. तो you know one, thank you Priyanka, I found your sharing very useful, Tanya, even yours, and the point Monica you mentioned, ये सब बहुत significant चीज़ें हैं कि टाइम का क्रंच हम कितना महसूस कर रहे हैं, हमारे पास कितना काम है. एक बात जो मुझे समझ में आई है कि सर्कल टाइम वेलबींग स्पेस की वर्कशॉप करने से कुछ खास फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता. लेट मी लाइक यू मे इंट्रोड्यूस सर्टन टूल्स. आई एम ड्राइंग फ्रॉम माय फेलियर्स कि आप ठीक है उसमें एक मोमेंटम बिल्ड कर लेंगे, लेकिन एक वर्ड होता है, जैसे तान्या ने एजेंसी यूज़ किया, मैं वर्ड कह रही हूँ इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइज करना, कि उसका एक सिंपल वे में कहें तो क्या वो आपकी संस्था की कल्चर है कि नहीं. तो अगर, और ये टेंशन्स क्या हैं, देखिए एक इंटरनल तो सिस्टमिक टेंशन तो है ही, मुझे नहीं पता हम उसका क्या करेंगे, पर मैं उसको स्टेट करना चाहती हूँ कि करिकुलम में हम कभी भी वेलबींग को सेंट्रल स्पेस नहीं देते. वो उसमें लिखा है एनसीएफ में, एनईपी भी अब इस बात को कह रहा है, लेकिन इतना डीपली हमारा स्कूल सिस्टम कंडीशनड है कि वो जो कोर सब्जेक्ट्स हैं ना, ये तो हैं वेलबींग एक्स्ट्रा. ये एक बहुत ही प्रॉब्लमैटिक, और इससे हमारा काफ़ी स्ट्रगल रहा. तो इसलिए अगर हम एक सर्कल टाइम क्रिएट कर देते हैं तो मैंने तो मतलब इट्स सो पैराडॉक्सिकल कि बहुत सारे टीचर्स महसूस कर रहे थे. आप उनसे वैसे बात करें तो उनको लगता है नहीं नहीं बच्चों के वेलबींग बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, बच्चे बड़े स्ट्रेस्ड हैं. फिर अगर आपने उसको करिकुलम में लग दिया उनको लगता है लो एक और काम आ गया. यू नो सो इट्स मोस्टली perceived at that level. Now we have to understand कि वो टेंशन क्यों आ रही है. वो इस बात पे भी आ रही है कि when they say knowledge is power, I also feel power is knowledge because power determines the worthiness of something. So हो सकता है कि मैं बहुत ही एक ड्रिवन टीचर होंगी अगर मैं उसे परस्यू करूं या मेरा बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग कन्विक्शन है. लेकिन ज़्यादातर जो बात तान्या ने हाईलाइट की कि चाहे मैं इंडिविजुअली उसको वैल्यू कर रही हूँ लेकिन व्हेन आई वर्क इन एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन और इंस्टीट्यूशन तो मुझे अपने वैल्यूज़ को ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल वैल्यूज से अलाइन करना पड़ता है. और अगर वो टेंशन मेरे लिए क्रिएट करेगा तो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऑलवेज विंस. नाउ आई वांट टू शेयर माय फेलियर. हमने नेहा के साथ सी लर्निंग सीखा एंड आई वाज वेरी फॉर्चुनेट to get this experience to take C learning in the school. But I am so sorry to share with you that we were not able to sustain it there. और ये सब काम I don't know whether Neha was telling our story or some other school story. It could be some other school story also because these are the tensions the schools are navigating with. पेरेंट कहेंगे ये बहुत अच्छा काम है लेकिन बच्चों के नंबर कैसे आ रहे हैं. तो इसलिए पेरेंट को भी एजुकेट करना. ऑल्दो वो ये भी अप्रिशिएट करते हैं कि देखिए बच्चे में पॉजिटिव चेंजेस आ रहे हैं बट एट द सिस्टमिक लेवल व्हाट इज कंसिडर्ड एज सक्सेस ऑफ वर्दीनेस इज नंबर कितने आए, क्या प्राइज मिला या नहीं मिला. तो हम हैप्पीनेस को, वेलबींग को, इमोशनल रेगुलेशन को इट्स लाइक what I felt, it's like quality of air in which you breathe. It's not visible, but the quality of air will impact everything in the long term. It may not have instant gratification, but अगर आप एक प्रदूषित एयर में बहुत देर तक रहेंगे तो उसके लॉन्ग टर्म इम्पैक्ट्स आपको दिखने लगेंगे. लेकिन आई थिंक इट्स मोर द रिदम ऑफ the school space and it's been a struggle. So you have to make a choice कि what do you do. और generally जो लोग इसको practice करते हैं वो जब वो organizations में ये conflict देखते हैं तो they generally part ways. But अगर अब देखिए schools में contradictions कैसी हैं. I'll give you one small example. I know time नहीं है but I think I'm feeling very compelled to share this with you. कि बच्चों ने बहुत अच्छी प्रेजेंटेशन दी, से नो टू प्लास्टिक. सो आई एम जस्ट डेमोन्स्ट्रेटिंग कि ये क्या कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स, पैराडॉक्सेस, कॉन्ट्रडिक्शंस हम कहते हैं और कैसे हम वो फ्रेगमेंटेशन क्रिएट करते हैं स्कूल में जहाँ बच्चों को लगता है कि जो क्लास में बात की जा रही है वो अलग है लेकिन मेरी जो जिंदगी है वो अलग है. तो उन्होंने और ये बहुत ही अच्छा इंटरनेशनल स्कूल था जिनके एग्जीबिशन पे मुझे बुलाया गया कि आप आइए और देखिए. और क्या कमाल का काम बच्चों ने किया था सब रिसर्च करके. इट वाज ब्यूटीफुल बट इट वाज नॉट एनीथिंग दैट चिल्ड्रन डिड. बट जस्ट इमेजिन कि व्हाट टीचर्स एंड स्कूल प्रोसेसेस कैन डू. सो इट वाज वेरी नाइस. उन्होंने सब प्लास्टिक के बारे में बताया क्या प्रॉब्लम है. मेरे से प्लेज भी ली कि यू विल नॉट यूज प्लास्टिक. आई सेड ओके. टिल डेट आई कैरी दैट. आई हैड वाटर बिकॉज इट वाज इन ग्लास. आई कैरी माई ओन वाटर बॉटल एंड आई एम वेरी कॉन्शियस कि मैं प्लास्टिक बॉटल नहीं यूज करूँ. लेकिन स्कूल में क्या हुआ, द मोमेंट आई साइन द प्लेज, प्लीज डोंट थिंक आई एम ड्रामेटाइजिंग इट, दिस इज एग्जैक्टली व्हाट हैपेंड. तो बाहर वो दीदी खड़ी थी पानी लेके मेरे लिए प्लास्टिक बॉटल्स में. तो आई सेड कि मैंने अभी प्लेज साइन की है आप मुझे कांच के गिलास में पानी ला दीजिए. एंड in the canteen, same school's canteen, plastic के spoons use हो रहे हैं, plastic के glasses. So what are we teaching children? And the same thing happens in C learning. The ma'am has taken a C learning session and then she said, if you don't do the assignment, I will cut 5 marks. So You have just spoken about kindness and compassion, empathy, and outside you do this. So this kind of fragmentation, I'm not saying it's the fault of our teachers. The whole spaces are structured like this. And it has been a huge struggle. And my closing thought would be that if the practitioner has not experienced well-being space, he or she can never authentically take it to their children. That's very, I think that's, so like you said, who conducts the circle time? Kyunki it's not about those check-in, check-out or yes, steps. It's more about the kind of dialogue you have in your classroom spaces. And for that, you need a certain perspective and certain way of thinking, and it takes time. And it takes commitment. If the school asks, मुझे evidence दिखाओ, बच्चे कहाँ kind हो रहे हैं, you know, what would you answer for that? So ये जो बहुत evidence based culture है, बहुत instant gratification है, it's very sad to see. And my hope is like in times to come that we become more sensitive as to how this space is more integrated, more holistic. It can't be fragmented. बात सिर्फ कक्षा के अंदर की नहीं है, बात ये भी है कि आप संस्थानों में क्या कर रहे हैं, आपकी स्कूल्स की प्रोसेसेस क्या हैं, क्या आप अपना एनर्जी और टाइम इन चीज़ों में, does it matter to you? You know, the bottom line is this. If it matters, it will happen. But if it doesn't matter, no matter how many circle times and, you know, sessions you do with teachers, it will always remain at the periphery. I think these were alignment of the leadership with the curriculum, with the teachers. It's very, very important. So I think it's like whether you can create that quality of air in your institution is when, because it's not just about teachers, you know. You have to create a very enabling ecosystem, very intentionally, a very conscious, concerted habit, you know, effort like habit formation has to be done. I think that's how we will be able to see success.
Thank you. That doesn't leave me with any time for my points about the consolidation. But I just want to say one thing. I'm deeply, deeply grateful to the four of you, because when I was putting this panel together, I had a lot of resistance from everyone about, but sirf teachers ko aana chahiye is panel mein, because this is a teacher panel. And I was very sure कि सिर्फ teachers को नहीं आना चाहिए इस panel में, because teachers are one sort of one character in the whole play. And there are just, because we talk about interdependence, because you know, individuals like what Tanya does and what Shabdaji does, it helps. And sorry, but all of you should also have been here, and you should have had a chance to speak about your own experiences on this, because I'm sure aap sabke paas, you have something to say about this, because we are all in this area. One, two is, हम सबके पास experiences है, and मुझे लगता है कि because हम interdependence की बात करते हैं, तो ऐसा तो हो नहीं सकता कि आपका point relevant नहीं है या useful नहीं है. So thank you so much for, I'll take from what Shabda ji said, this definitely matters to you. इसीलिए आप अपना time यहाँ पे spend कर रहे हैं. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all these beautiful ladies over here. थैंक यू सो मच एवरीवन। तो सौम्या ने किसी सरप्राइज की बात की थी, राइट? याद है किसी को? तो थोड़ा जोर से, मुझे लग रहा है एनर्जी डाउन हो गई है। ठीक है, तो लेट्स वेलकम विभोर बैंड फ्रॉम मंजिल मिस्टिक्स फाउंडेशन। हम इसी के साथ अब इनका परफॉर्मेंस देखेंगे, सुनेंगे और एंजॉय करेंगे। लेट्स गिव अ बिग राउंड ऑफ अप्लॉज फॉर विभोर। अरे ठीक है यार। तो शुरुआत करने से पहले मैं बता दूं कि विभोर मंजिल मिस्टिक्स फाउंडेशन का एक पार्ट है which aims to create a safe and inclusive spaces for adolescent girls and women from low income communities। तो वो बहुत ही बेहतरीन काम कर रहे हैं और अभी अपने परफॉर्मेंस का भी हमें एंजॉय करने का मौका देंगे। Okay, so while the stage is being set up, I would just also request you guys to give a big round of applause। ताली जोर से बजाएं हमारे यहाँ पे मौजूद वेलबिंग प्रेन्योर्स और फैमिली चैंपियंस के लिए। I would also request them to stand up और खुद के लिए भी ताली बजाएं, उनके लिए भी ताली बजाएं।
क्या हमारे सभी फैमिली चैंपियन एक बार खड़े हो सकते हैं और वेलबिंग प्रेन्योर्स भी? ये हमारी कम्युनिटी है डिफरेंट ज्योग्राफीज की।
Okay, thank you so much everybody। I hope the energy is back। The stage is now all transferred to Vibhor band।
हेलो हाय एवरीवन। सो सबने इंट्रोड्यूस कर ही दिया है कि हम लोग विभोर टीम है। तो बिना किसी बातचीत के हम लोग सबसे पहले गाना शुरू करते हैं। तो जो हमारा पहला गाना है वो मंजिल मिस्टिक्स ने ही लिखा भी है और कंपोज भी करा है और इसके शब्द बहुत ही आसान है। आओ हम ढूंढ लें जीवन के सातों रंग। ठीक है, आई होप बहुत ही आसान शब्द है, आपको समझ में आए होंगे। तो जब भी ये लाइन आएगी, आओ हम ढूंढ लें जीवन के सातों रंग, एक बार आप सब बोलेंगे हमारे साथ, आओ हम ग्रेट। तो जब भी ये लाइन आएगी तो आप सबको हमारे साथ गाना है, ठीक है?
हेलो चेक।
It's okay, thank
I think you can use the other mic.
It's actually good to thank. So we'll accept the thank you. And then we'll continue with our performance. So जो अगला गाना हम आपके सामने पेश करने जा रहे हैं. हाँ. I think now I'm audible. Yes. I'm sorry. So जो आप सबके सब सपने देखते ही होंगे. आप लोग सपने देखते हैं? Yes. और उनसे हमारी उम्मीदें हैं. हमारी लाइफ चलती है उनसे. कभी पूरी होती है, कभी नहीं होती. तो आशाएं, उम्मीदें, ये सब लेके हम ये गाना आपके सामने एक प्रस्तुत करना चाहते हैं. आप लोग सब प्लीज, बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है आप लोग सब साथ में.
शाहरुख कहता है कि ऐसे बड़े बड़े शहरों में ऐसी छोटी छोटी बातें होती रहती हैं. तो actually इतना energy वाला song था कि मैं इतनी excited हो गई थी. It was so I would like to have a big round of applause for them once again. Thank you so much for being present here.
So our family champions have to leave. So उनके लिए वापस जोरदार तालियां. इन लोगों के लिए पहली बार था ऐसे स्पेस में आना, अपने काम के बारे में बताना. तो आई होप आप सबने इनसे गैलरी वॉक पे आप मिले होंगे. सो एनीवे धन्यवाद आपका वापस. थैंक यू. अच्छे से जाना सुरक्षित.
फैमिली चैंपियंस तो हमारे जा रहे हैं, बट विभोर अभी वापस आएंगे, तो इंतजार रहेगा ब्रेक के बाद. ओके, थैंक यू सो मच एवरीवन. मूविंग अहेड, we'll be inviting. Moving ahead, our next panel is focusing on the possibilities that well-being brings to our education sector. It is the CSO panel, the last panel for the evening. This will be a generative and authentic conversation with civil society leaders who are Shantalia's allies. I'd like to introduce our panel facilitator, Daisy Rosales, who is the co-founder of BRIO, a non-profit based in the US. BRIO has been partnering with Kshamta since 2020 to co-design community mental health initiatives and experiences that promote mental well-being. Our first project together was creating Hosla, a 21-day program for teachers. BRIO has been a co-dreamer on the journey of well-being that we have initiated. It couldn't be possible without you guys. So I would like to, thank Daisy and Aaron for being the best of the system for Shantale. Okay, so next panel will be moderated by Daisy as well as Pallavi. I would also like you to introduce Pallavi from Shantale. Pallavi is the lead of the design team of Shantale. She ensures that the team members of Shantale are learning and thriving. She is an avid reader and loves to get lost in children's literature. So welcome Daisy and Pallavi, the stage is yours.
I'd like to call up our other panelists, please. Come on up.
The panelists of this, the speakers of this panel are welcome to join Pallavi and Daisy over here. Dilip, Nana, Ravi ji.
It's an honor to be here, and I actually tried to take some Hindi classes a month before we were supposed to come here, and then life happened, so I bought a sari yesterday. Here I am. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you all for being here. I do hope this is a generative and collaborative conversation with you all about this broader theme of well-being that we've been discussing all night. Well-being can be hard to define sometimes. It's actually a really expansive term. It means so many things. I know for me it means vitality and aliveness in the midst of hardship, when life is really hard, and still being able to be the kind of person I want to be. And so I know that in recent years there's a growing interest in well-being, which we celebrate. And also, it speaks to something that is just deeply human, and I want to start from the beginning. Ravi, you've mentioned working on well-being themes, or themes that are now called well-being, long ago when you started Manzil, and I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit of how did you start noticing the importance of these deeply human themes, and how did you build that into the work that Manzil does?
Hindi and English mix. आवाज आ रही है पीछे?
So it could be
More English.
feel free to use English because I see.
Okay, okay, lovely. So, yeah, I mean, when we started Manzil 25 years ago, these words didn't exist. We didn't think of it like that. But I think for me, the connection was from my own childhood. I was a very sensitive child. Now, boys are not supposed to be sensitive. This supposed to be is a problem, right? Rather than, and I could notice constantly, with that experience, when a child who came to Manzil could not really, be himself or herself because of some threat perception they had. And this threat was obviously not a physical threat. It was more of a, would somebody laugh at me? What would people think about me? What opinion will they have of me? It was just holding the child back. Now, if things like these are holding children back, I now have that language, right? Now there's this one metaphor of seeing the brain like this that I love. It's not mine, I learned it from Dan Siegel. कि आपका दिमाग इस तरीके से है, ये आपका पुराना brain है, reptilian brain है, right? The reptilian brain that responds to emotions, and this is your prefrontal cortex that has grown later. Now, when you feel under threat, the old brain flips this new brain away, and now you suddenly become stupid. The same. So we have this. I think it's a concept we need to get rid of now. The fixed IQ concept. Right? There's a fixed IQ. Your intelligence is also in waves. So when you flipped, your intelligence is gone. How many of us have had that experience that when you're really angry, you say silly stuff, right? And then later you regret it. Now, I don't think it requires, the language came later, but if you really notice carefully, you see it happening to people all the time, everybody, across ages. And I think that's what because of the sensitivity mainly, I was able to notice that. And because I had suffered because of it as a child, I was a very shy, introverted child, would not speak in class at all. So my best friend, who I, lived in the same colony with, we used to go to each other's house all the time, used to play together all the time, but he didn't know my innermost thoughts. I wouldn't share them. What would he think? मेरे अंदर कुछ अजीब अजीब विचार आते हैं कि ये ठीक नहीं है, ये नहीं होना चाहिए, वो हंसेगा मेरे पे, चुप रहो. So those are the things I remembered when I started. So I was very sensitive to it around me. I would pick it up when somebody is holding himself or herself back, and I would say, okay, how can I make it easier for this person? What role can I play? And I also saw it as the people who would shut others up. There's a lot of thing here that you laugh easily on others, and it's seen as like maza aa raha hai, right? Mazak, maza hai. But what it does to other people is actually, they don't realize it. It's not their fault. It's just been, everybody laughs, so I also laugh. It's as simple as that. But if you get people to just feel for the other, they're able to. There's a shift that happens for them. So there's learning for both. The one who's feeling oppressed and the one who's not on purpose, but just inadvertently, maybe making others shut down. It's a growth area for both. And that I could see very easily. So I would intervene there and do it in a very, like everybody feels accepted about it, and it's an expansion of your thinking. I enjoyed doing that. And I saw how the children thrived when I was doing that. They would both grow, both kinds of children. So that is where it really began. I'm so happy now that the language is also there. Of course, our previous panel also brought a danger that we may have the language and we may forget the spirit now. Right? We are doing all the activities and we've done the... So it's the bhav, it's the feeling, the intention inside which you have to watch out for. The intention and the action are not necessarily... It's not automatic that... And again, I see in our culture a lot of that. You know, you tell people, "Acha unke paanv chhuo," to show respect. But respect is something felt from inside. If my daughter, who's 3 years old, calls me by name, other people sort of थोड़े से हो जाते हैं कि भैया 3 साल की बच्ची अपने फादर को नाम से बुला रही है, बाबा कहने की बजाय, right? But मुझे लगता है कि उसमें आदर नहीं छुपा हुआ. She may still be respecting me, and I don't care how she uses whether she touches feet or not. But I think in our culture there's a big confusion there. So that kind of matching is now the new thing we have to look at. But otherwise, I'm very happy that this language is coming and there's some importance coming in. I just want to add one more thing. It's not, actually this is the critical piece. Everything else builds on that. All the learning builds on that. So I really, I'm looking forward to the day when this is not just one sidey thing, but it's central. It's a central piece.
Thanks, Ravi. And what I really love about what you're saying is it started with a sensitivity for you and a desire to live from the inside out, like coming from your own experience and leveraging that to figure out, what would it look like to question or change some of the norms that are in our culture. What if we lived differently? What if we lived in a new way? And Mainak, I know that you have worked on bringing that into your organization. One of the things you said you're most proud of that you've done is integrating well-being into your culture. Now, we know in the social sector, when you're working for the good of others, it is so tempting to deny yourself in that, right? And to not include yourself. There's a lot of self-exploitation in our culture where we push ourselves and push ourselves and push ourselves because it's for the good of someone else, and maybe society even rewards us a little bit for that, right? And so, Mainak, I'm wondering if you could speak to how you've cultivated some of this well-being in the culture of your organization and how you've come to be proud of that.
Thank you so much. So, I work with can you hear me? Okay. I work with an organization called Simple Education Foundation. Or our belief is that if children thrive in classrooms, they thrive in life, right? So, इसी को अगर हम थोड़ा सा stretch करें and we bring it to ourselves, then we feel like if we as sort of जैसे यहाँ पे बताया गया है caregivers, right? We as caregivers अगर हम अपने आप को ध्यान नहीं रख पा रहे, अगर हम अपने work space में thrive नहीं कर रहे, तो हम अपने काम पे कैसे thrive करेंगे? I think that becomes a very critical aspect. And I don't love sports. मुझे football, cricket वगैरह देखना उतना पसंद नहीं है. But I've learned a lot from sports. And one thing that I've learned from sports, or even from like music or theater, is that you practice more than you perform. But in a lot of education का आप जब देखोगे या in our work, we perform more than we practice, right? So and hence it becomes very important कि हमारा जो practice time है ना, we maximize the impact of the practice time. And what do we really need to practice when we are on off the field, right? And that is a question that I think we've been asking very sort of deeply at Simple Education Foundation, that what do we need to sort of really start doing in our sort of off the field, and which is actually a bunch of things that we focus on with respect to well-being, because the other things are far more easy to do alone as well. And like Ravi Bhaiya said, a lot of them are also culturally appropriate. कि अच्छा आप कहीं जाके कुछ पढ़ रहे हो, that's culturally also appropriate. But oh, you are sitting alone in your house meditating, or you're sitting alone doodling. There are people who are probably going to come and ask, अच्छा क्या कर रहे हो? चुपचाप क्यों बैठे हो? Why are you not talking to anyone? A lot of those things. So how do we create space as the world is sort of opening up to these ideas? How do we create space in the organization? Jab tak na we reach that sort of ultimate sort of world, how do we create that space so that people are able to practice well-being. And we do very simple things. We have regular sort of Monday check-ins with the team. We have a segment of well-being in all our sort of conversations with our one-on-one conversations with team members. Nothing out of the box, but वही same चीज़ है, like basically focusing that this is something that we need to talk about. This is something that we need to care about. I think that's about it.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think one of the things that you pointed out that is so strong is that well-being is something we need each other for. You know, I think that there's something that is really beautiful about doing it yourself at any point, you know, changing your relationship with your own experiences, but you do that in the context of other people, and they can strengthen that with you. And so Neha, everyone here knows you and what you do, especially after that last panel, but I was wondering if you could share a little bit more about what it's been like to lead teachers through this process of building some of these skills. You know, we know there's been resistance and openness, both of those things, but what does it actually look like when you're helping someone to cultivate some of these well-being skills?
In 2 words, it's deeply satisfying. I really think that, okay, maybe I'll flip this and ask a question. How many of you experience happiness or have experienced happiness ever? All of us? Yes? How many of you experience happiness all the time? That tells me, or that tells us, that A, it's not possible to be quote unquote happy all the time. B, I don't think it's also needed to be happy all the time, because when we experience a range of emotions, when we experience the flipping, when we experience all of these things that we experience are universal. And because they are universal, coming to the question that you've asked me, I think with educators, it's, you know, there is an instant connect, because what we are talking about is something that they are able to relate to from their own personal lives. They're able to see that this makes sense. They're able to see that ये तो मैं हूँ, right? अगर हम गुस्सा होने की बात कर रहे हैं, तो I don't think कमरे में यहाँ पे कोई भी है जिसने कभी भी गुस्सा एक्सपीरियंस ही नहीं किया है, right? तो इतना ज़्यादा कॉमन एक्सपीरियंस है हमारा, हम सब का इस चीज़ को लेके. It is a shared common humanity, and because of that, all the tools that we have to offer are easily sort of therefore accepted, right? I think the resistance comes when we are not able to communicate to educators, or when they are not able to connect that to their own personal lives. जब अपनी जिंदगी से उसको जोड़ नहीं पाते हैं, तो लगता है कि ये क्या एडिशनल चीज़ है. लेकिन जब उसको अपनी जिंदगी से जोड़ पाते हैं, तो ऐसा लगता है अरे ये तो मेरे लिए ही है. And sometimes as human beings we all struggle. Like for example, one part of my mind is telling me, oh, you're angry, you shouldn't be angry. Oh, but you shouldn't shout. Oh, just shut up right now, otherwise you're going to say something that you will regret. Yada, yada, yada. That internal dialogue, I want to be able to work with my own mind and be able to resolve that for myself, but I don't know how to do it. And sometimes when tools like these are offered, it's almost like, oh, I was waiting for someone to come and tell me how to do this, right? And in the whole process, what is interesting, and this is something that we in C-Learning really practice very consciously, we're not the sages on the stages. We don't sit there and, I mean, sorry, today is like a counterintuitive to that. But we're what we call guides on the side, right? So we like to be there as someone who's co-traveling in the journey myself, right? So for those of you who don't know, Ravi and I are married to each other, and we Moinak, not you, and we I mean, what I'm trying to say is that we live in the same house, and therefore, you know, it's easy for both of us to come here and talk about all of these, है ना? हम बातें कर सकते हैं यहाँ बैठ के. But ultimately, when we go back home, we know each other's realities, right? But the point I'm trying to make is that all of us are in the journey. No one's perfect. We are all trying to get to a point where we feel safe and well, and where others can feel safe and well. If that is the agenda and intention that we all operate with, then we are only supporting each other in that journey, right? So if I have a slip when I go back home, I'm sure, I know that I have someone who can understand, who will not judge me, who will support me, and vice versa, hopefully. So that's, with educators, I think that's been the experience. More than, and I've facilitated training programs before, right? Where they've not been, the content hasn't been this, and therefore it's more like, okay, check, training done, next training, next group, next whatever. But this, with a well-being program, it doesn't feel like, okay, next, right? There is a continuation, there is a certain, some people drop out of the journey, some people will come back in the journey, and it's a nice, it's life, right? That's the beauty of working with educators on something like this. And now, more than ever, we are seeing that because they've said caregivers, we can see the universality of this program, not only for, by the way, C-Learning was created for children, but we use the same program for ourselves and adults, and we are seeing that this is not just for educators, but this is for everyone around us, because the commonality of experience is shared, right? So that's, the work is not really about training and therefore measuring impact and therefore getting the results and all of that. It's a different journey, and I hope the funders understand it, but it's a different journey.
A note to the funders. I want to pause for a moment on something that you named, which is that to be human is to experience a range of emotions. And we can connect to this wide range of experiences that we all have. Pleasure, pain, and everything in between, right? And as we start to kind of engage in this well-being journey, we realize that the goal is not to live a life that is free of stress or pain or any of those difficult thoughts and feelings that we don't like to have, but to be able to maybe show up more whole in the midst of that. And so, Pallavi, I know you weren't planning on being on this panel, but someone couldn't come. And so I wonder if you would be willing to speak to what that journey has been like, either for you personally, learning about well-being and your role. You started with Kshamta around the time we started with you also. It's been a journey, and I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share as much as you'd like about what that's been like for you and what you've learned.
First of all, it's a privilege to be here as a panelist. Oh my God, I never thought that I'd be here. For me, I think my journey with well-being started with understanding the terminologies that was used very frequently around my, like the people who were using it, or the concepts that were like flying in the air but not like connect. I felt like very surreal that I know these words, but I don't understand them. So the journey started with understanding what these words mean for me, like gaining those kind of personal insights, understanding what resilience means for me, what really is a matter of survival for me. When do I flip? When is it that I am feeling? What am I exactly feeling? What are my sensations? I never noticed them. Nobody asked me how are you feeling till the time I actually came into development sector. So yeah, my journey had a past of corporate sector, and I realized that it's none of anybody's concern to actually ask someone how are you feeling right now, because what everybody wants is that you have done your job well. about it thinking like hindsight that I've done CBCT for 4 times. Cognitive based compassion training. It is basically well-being for adults and a lot of conversations around compassion, a lot of concepts around compassion happen in that. And I did it 4 times to understand what compassion really means for me. What is self-compassion for me? And that concept I never had in my life. I always used to think it is to do, like compassion is to do something for others. It doesn't involve you. But I think this journey has shifted from there to realize that if I cannot be compassionate to myself, I cannot create a classroom that is compassionate. I cannot work with educators to say that you should be compassionate to children in your classroom setting. So I think that journey has been incredibly wonderful. What we do in Kshamtale, as Moinik also mentioned, Ravi Bhai also mentioned, and also I think a lot of people in the previous panel also shared, that it has to be a culture. It cannot be something that's an intervention per se, which is happening and measured and then calculated in the end, and you can present your impact to the world. But it is about how you are operating on a day-to-day basis with your colleagues, with your peers, with your stakeholders, what kind of conversations happening. So I think very small practices like settling in while initiating any meeting, starting to check in with people who you are working with, setting a culture of habit review, like how are you doing every day while starting your day. So checking in with yourself, how my day is starting, how am I waking up today, and how am I closing my day. Who do I have cultivated gratitude for today, what opportunities did I receive today. तो वो सारी चीज़ें जो है ना, अगर वो आपके प्रोसेस का हिस्सा बन जाती हैं, तो वो आपके हैबिट्स का हिस्सा धीरे धीरे बनना शुरू हो जाती हैं. Because we are adults, we never got that opportunity in my childhood. I never got. So when I found a structure that was strategically oriented towards well-being of everybody, I think it gave me an opportunity to think about it reflectively. So it's just not to the educators that we do, and it's not just limited to the kind of compassionate classroom we want to create for a child. It is also to do with how are we doing organizationally. So, and it cannot happen either ways. It has to be holistic, and if that word is used very commonly, I would say it has to happen at every single level. So yeah, I think Kshamtale is trying to do small little interventions to engage people in conversations like this, be it child, be it a teacher, be it their own people who are working for the vision of creating compassionate world for children. And yeah, we will try and do. Dilip is sitting next to me. He's our well-being preneur. So the first kind of fellowship that we created to make it more and more accessible, to make well-being more and more accessible to teachers, to educators, to communities that they are working with, to organizations they are part of. I think the mission is to go a long way. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks for sharing that. I think it's really interesting when we come to that meeting point between our experience and the experiences that we hope for everyone else, because then we're included in that, right? We're kind of shepherded along in that journey. And so well-being can be deeply personal. It takes that kind of deep level of transformation. It takes other people. It takes self-reflection and thinking through, how do I want to take all of my experiences and bring that fullness to the work that I do and to things that matter to me. That can be really tough to do with large groups of people. There are many tensions and trade-offs that are faced when we're thinking about working deeply individually with communities and also making things accessible to a large number of people. So Dilip, I'd like you to start with, what are some of your reflections on, well, first of all, how have you seen well-being transform some of the people that you work with? And how do you see the various trade-offs and tensions as you think about growing your organization and growing your impact?
Surely. So I'll start with how I have been transformed because of the well-being and also I have a few people with me from my team. So how this extension of well-being to purposefully take the well-being to next level of, at least in my surrounding and then to the last mile communities. I think first thing that has helped me a lot is hello. Thank you so much. So what I was saying is, well-being has taken me to the places where I've never imagined myself. It's in a way physically and mentally or emotionally, all the ways. I was part of Acumen India recently, and to be amongst those people who were selected, so thoughtful people, I was not able to accept the fact that I am here. Why? I have never thought, or nobody has told me that you can be someone. You can be heard by people. And the small belief that you will be heard someday would have made a lot more difference than what I'm doing today. So that's the part of well-being. Just start practicing that courage. Staying in that spectrum that Tanya was mentioning before, that the spectrum. Stay there, embrace the ambiguity, embrace the discomfort, and practice courage to deal with that. And that is my identity, my way of, being more well all the time. And that's one thing. But specifically, it's a very personal journey. If you don't experience it, you won't able to transfer it to someone else. You won't able to, which Neha was saying, you will not be able to make them feel that why it is important, how it can impact you, how it will be helpful to you. So it's very personal, and when it's very personal, it is very difficult to work with a large group of people. And specifically, it's highly challenging when you want to scale it up. So recently, Anubhuti got chance to work with Government of Haryana on a project called EduCell, which also some extension of well-being for the teachers. We trained around 28,000 teachers of Government of Haryana. 28,000 teachers is a huge number. But the problem is, if you go to train 50 teachers of New Mewat and 50 teachers of Sirsa or Fatehawad, they share different culture, different language, different food, a lot of differences, and because of it's so personal, you cannot teach them the same thing. It has to be contextualized, and that's why I was very, very resonated with what Shabda was saying before. I went to personally share my gratitude to her because it has to be integrated if it has to be scaled. So I think it's very challenging to scale well-being or some sort of well-being practices to on a scale because it's personal experience, and you cannot make 50 people agree on the same thing. Although I recently read the preamble of United Nations, which starts with all human are born equal and free. So the common minimum for the entire globe is that we all have to accept the fact that first of all, everyone is sitting here as the human, Homo sapiens. There has to be no disagreement on that. If we build anything on that oh yeah, ये तो यश है, ये तो कामरान है, हम जा चुके हैं उस जमाने में जहाँ पे ये वेलबींग वाली common चीज we cannot ensure for everyone. So we have to accept the fact that, and I think not just accept the fact, we have to establish that narrative that we has to have a common minimum. Common minimum is that everybody sitting here or sitting there will accept the fact that this is the common thing, which is an emotion. And once we understand it, or once people understand, it will become easy to scale. Otherwise, it will always be difficult because I was literally wondering, the teachers I heard before in this panel, I was literally wondering why I was not having such teachers in my school. And why I'm not having such teachers in my schools where I'm working. सोचिए कितना डिफिकल्ट है ऐसे टीचर हर स्कूल में पहुंचाना या ऐसे टीचर बनाना. समझ ना? It's so difficult. So there is a lot of challenge, but at the same time there's a huge opportunity as well. So that's what my take is.
आप सभी को नमस्ते। मेरा नाम अंशु है और मैं पिरामल फाउंडेशन से हूँ। सो आई मीन जो प्रीवियस पैनल में भी बात हो रही थी, यू टॉक्ड अ लॉट अबाउट दिस बीइंग अ जर्नी, देन नेहा शेयर्ड अबाउट दिस बीइंग अ जर्नी, पर्सनल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन बीइंग अ जर्नी, एंड आई रेजोनेटेड so deeply with that journey part. It's a journey and not a destination. And we all are at different stages of that journey. And apart from that, who are your co-travelers, Neha? That makes all the difference. Whether they are making the journey more enjoyable or they are making your journey even more difficult. So yeah, with that in mind, I mean, I would like to share a story from one of our schools in Rajasthan, in Jhunjhunu district. So this is the story of a principal and his set of teachers. तो ये जो हमारे principal sir हैं, I mean, in one of the sessions he shared that he finds it very difficult to kind of connect with his teachers and ask them to do anything, because of the fear of getting rejected, that he will not be heard. Teachers will not listen to him and he will not be accepted. And he was vulnerable. He felt it was a safe space, so he shared. And he immediately got all the support from other peers. And later he started a practice in his school. Like during assembly, he would ask each of the teacher, as to why are you here today? And initially the sharing used to be, I'm here to teach this subject, I'm here to do this thing, complete this thing, work on this document. But over a period of time, this sharing shifted from, I'm here for my students. I'm here to be with them, I'm here to learn from them, I'm here to support them. So this, in a way, helped in creating that enabling environment in that particular school. So on one hand, this principal felt more connected with self and therefore with others, and teachers felt heard, they felt safe, and they started taking more responsibility, they started taking more ownership and that agency to serve. I mean, we believe that in order to ensure the well-being of that last mile beneficiary, that is the child, well-being of all the adults in the value chain, starting from teacher to state level officials, need to be focused on. So, and we work using the C-learning curriculum. We have adopted that curriculum. Even the CBCT practices and other innovative pedagogies like aesthetic literacy, physical literacy, and project-based learning. And what we do at the state level, we work with state institutions like SCERTs, Directorate of School Education, and CMAT, to kind of create a cadre within the system who support teachers in their respective districts to focus on their own well-being and then take this to classroom. Because C-learning or any curriculum for that matter is not about what you teach, it's more about how you teach. Then at the district level, at the state level, we also work with these state institutions across states to kind of integrate C-learning in the state curriculum framework and also as part of the continuous professional development of diet faculty, because they are the ones who engage with teachers in the school. At the district level, we worked with people like coaches and facilitators, worked on their capability. And we created a cadre who in turn would support teachers on ground in taking the C-learning agenda ahead in their respective schools. And at the school level, we have created a cadre of C-learning ambassadors who lead the agenda in their respective schools. So that is what we do. And I mean, change is slow, but it does happen. Needle does move. It's a slow process, and it requires a lot of that delayed gratification. Wait करना पड़ता है, तब जाके कहीं वो change दिखता है. It doesn't happen overnight. So yeah, thank you.
Change is slow, but it does happen. I think I should get that on a t-shirt or something for all of us. I love what you both touched on, you know, one sort of recognizing how unique we are as individuals, you know, not making assumptions about a person's experience, and yet also recognizing there's a common human experience. You know, we're not all so different where one is a red dot and the other one's like a, I don't know, like a roasted chicken or something. You know, like there's something that we share, and when you're able to kind of lean into that, I don't know how many times you use the word cadre or cadre, you know, but just in terms of building coalitions and coalitions and coalitions of people who can really start to move through the system, and how much time that takes, and yet when they feel that this is about their common humanity, it sounds like there's some of that motivation, some of that movement that is natural for them to want this to happen. I wonder if other panels have thoughts on this broader question of, you know, well-being being something that is personal, it is also communal, and it's also in systems. And so how do you think about it when you're thinking about the kind of impact that you want to have in your organization, whether that is large scale, and, you know, we make jokes about million, billion, trillion, you know, like at some point someone's going to claim they reached 1 trillion people. But, you know, I'm curious, you know, how you think about scale and the kind of impact that is important to you to have when it comes to well-being. This is open to anyone.
Maybe I can take that because we've been mulling over this scale question for like recently. And I just want to say one small thing is that I would really like and hope for our definition of scale to change, or at least broaden and expand. Because we think that scale is horizontal, and that's precisely why we keep talking about these numbers, expansion, expansion, expansion. But what we forget is that scale is also vertical. There is just, you know, there's no end to how much depth one can go. I mean, if I can go to trillion, I'm sure there is a stop to that number someday. But is there a stop to the number of, or the depth of how much we can be kind to each other, how much support we can give each other, and how many people we can give that support to? So I think we really, I really hope that someday we're all able to see that scale is not just this, and therefore not, sorry, but in India at least, and in the development sector in India, we tend to dismiss this scale. We tend to dismiss. On the other hand, we also tend to almost neglect or not appreciate, you know, the depth-related work that is happening. And I think real transformation, we all know, happens here and not here. So that's my understanding. Yes, Moinak. Oh, I've sparked something.
Yeah, let's hear a response to that.
No, so I think I agree to a large degree to what Neha you mentioned, but I have a slightly different view of why scaling, right? I'll give you an example. If you're a cook and you're cooking for one person every day, you can reach a point where you can cook exactly what they like every single day. And in that sort of process, I feel you actually reach the end of depth seeking. Versus if you have to do this for a group of 50 people, a group of 100 people, that pushes for a different degree, a different kind of sort of excellence. But the thing that we have to understand here is that depth, like if we look at depth and scale as the two poles of a magnet, then you realize that both of them have to be there for the magnet to be a magnet, right? Otherwise, there's no unipolar magnets. करके कुछ होता नहीं है. But the thing is, if you again draw it in a quadrant, where on one end you have scale, on one end you have as an x-axis with scale and depth, and your four quadrants being like what happens if everything that is good in scale happens and everything that is bad in sort of depth happens. And the other is the opposite. And similarly, your four quadrants are placed, and you're aware of the pros and cons of depth and scale. And you can then balance your sort of journey in a way where you ensure that you are hitting the maximum pros of depth and that of scale. Because I feel like this, I do feel that sometimes not going beyond a certain point in the garb of saying that, oh, I'm going deep, is an excuse. Versus similarly, sometimes saying, कि, अच्छा, I will scale and hence I know that 5 things will fall apart. That is given with scaling. And that's something that you always hear, right? Program will dilute because we are scaling. Collateral damage. And that's again a point that I have like an inherent challenge with. It's because I feel like we are not thinking deeply enough about these pieces. And to just sort of take on some of the points that Dilip also mentioned, I think while, you know, that scaling programs like well-being or social emotional learning are difficult, but we forget that when we learn, or in my experience, I've seen that when we learned these things, or when we sort of experienced these things, we've experienced it in a very one-to-one kind of a setting while being at a large space. Like, so if people are loving CBCT, no one had like one session with like the person, right? So they still had it like one person was talking to, I don't know, 50 people or 30 people. So ideally, it is the pedagogy that was used there that sort of we need to look at more deeply, and how do we sort of take that forward. And in that, trust that everyone in the room will show up with their best intention and their best foot forward. Because I think the moment we start thinking a lot about, oh, you know, it will not work because I don't know if teachers there will even understand this, so I have to do this. Like what Dilip mentioned, that we are all humans at the baseline. If we start with that and we start building things, then maybe we'll reach a point where we'll also take into account the fact that if we were able to receive it in a certain setting, everyone might be able to receive it in a certain setting. Why putting ourselves on this pedestal ke, oh, hum to seek liya, but others, I don't know, we have to dumb it down for them. Right? And I think that is where some of my inherent sort of, I don't know, what do you call it, like this, tensions sort of emerge.
I think a lot of what Moinik said, I already resonate with that. And that's why I believe that depth and scale are not parallel lines. They have to meet at some point, and without having depth, with any sort of intention that you are having, you cannot scale it up. So there is no point of scaling if you do not have depth in understanding anything that you're trying to do. So, hence the kind of approach that that Kshamta adopts is something that I really, really appreciate on that part. Like demonstrating what depth really means, demonstrating what excellence really means with a small number of things, small number of schools, and then moving up to cultivating that kind of cadre, what Anshuji also talked about, cultivating that kind of leadership in people, in communities who are going to experience that and also deliver that. And then moving on to think about how systemically we can enter into such domains which are required for a larger scale of people, larger scale of community. It should not be that yes, we are doing here and that's good enough, so we should just stick to this place. But thinking from a perspective of how can the system be supported. And if we are thinking from that perspective, I believe that state institutions also have vision to move towards that. It's not just that we as a civil society organization thinking about such things to happen, but how can it become state's mission to take it ahead from there. Learn it from the demonstration that is happening. Think about the kind of community that can be created during that process. And why can't it be done then on state level when there are immense amount of resources there? So how can we kind of bring a coalition, not just thinking about the CSOs who are working in this domain, but also bringing in government institutions, state institutions, national institutions into such kind of initiatives where we believe very, very firmly that this is required for every single child on planet. So I think I see depth as an initiating point for any sort of skill that can ever happen in this world, in any sort of domain. So that's what I think about it. If Ravi bhai has anything, or Anshul.
So, to me, scale is depth plus scale. It's not depth or scale, it is both. It's a combination of both. And it means creating that enabling ecosystem at every level so that well-being becomes an agenda. And secondly, institutionalizing the entire process and the agenda, and these institutions taking ownership of the well-being for everyone. So that is what scale means for us.
So I feel that nature has metaphors there for us to see, and also understanding the nature of the human mind. So, we saw that movie Avatar, in which there was one tree that covered the whole planet, but that's not what we see around us. There's a certain loss of integrity, at least in my experience, if something as a single decision-making unit scales beyond a point. See, there's no doubt that everybody, every human on this planet needs what we're talking about, well-being, right? And being cared for. And just the fact that we survived as a species, if you look at the uniqueness of our species, if we are of this age, we've been cared for, or we would have died. We cannot survive unless we're cared for, right? So it's a need of everybody in our species. And why should they not have it? And why won't we imagine a world where everybody would have it? It's the way it will come about. In my experience, when artificial collections, which is what organizations are, we have to recognize an organization is an artificial collection, right? It's artificial in the sense that somebody said, okay, we have a common purpose, so we come together and we are going to do this. But how many people, how large can it be when people continue to experience that it's a common purpose? Beyond a point, people in organizations do not experience it as a common purpose. It's also a reality of our species, right? Which is why we have a new phenomena that we're seeing now as people are feeling, especially in the developed world, that they are not so dependent on corporates. They're actually switching off. They're walking out of large corporates. They're saying I don't feel alive here, right? And they're all talking of nice things, but it's not being experienced by people. How many people in a very large organization feel that common purpose? They're just doing a job. Some processes are laid out and they're just living it. I don't think in that context you can really experience well-being or create for others. So there's a size we have to understand. Beyond that, that whole idea loses integrity. We just have to multiply the numbers, and we've done experiments on that. We know somebody came up with this number of 150. I forget the book in which it got talked about. Malcolm Gladwell, some book, right? Outlier? Yeah, I don't know if it's in that book. There's written many, but in some book, I came across it but beyond 150, you start a new organization. But you don't make that organization bigger. Because if you do, people will just be doing what they have to do because they need a job. So I feel this, to have it with integrity as a reality, we should think about those ideas and try to, for example, you know, you can say that, you know, I can be a mother to 2 children, 3 children, I can be a great mother, so I can be a great mother to 200. It doesn't work like that. We cannot be. That's not given to us, even though we may want to be, right? So you work with a certain number of people and you can create that sense of common purpose. But beyond that certain number, it doesn't happen. So I feel the idea is to multiply those entities, and it has to come into our DNA. If you look at it another way, it's the DNA that lives and is using our bodies, right? We are not the ones, right? So if you flip it. So how can we bring it into our DNA, and then it can just, the winds change, and it takes over the entire. One amazing thing about our species is something happens somewhere, it starts to happen in other places, even though they may not be connected and talking to each other. So many inventions happen at the same time in 2 different parts of the world when they were not even talking to each other. There seems to be something mysterious in our species. I mean, I do believe that. It affects the entire, in a sense we are all one, even though we seem to be all individuals making our own decisions, going our own separate ways. I don't know, maybe I should stop, I'm rambling now.
With the scale we lose trust, and that's what government is trying to, because government has the largest system in India at least. More than government, nobody has the reach that government has. And the practicality of India is that the system which has been set up is so complex that it is very, very difficult to work with full authenticity to the scale, to the last mile children or community or school or postman or anyone. Because with scale, people lose trust in people, so they want to hold them with compliances. And whatever the program so far, हम लोग जितना बैठ के education सुधारने और revolution reinvent करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, because somewhere we feel कि ये हो सकता है, it should be done because now is the time. वो क्यों नहीं कर पा रहे? They have a lot of thinkers there. They have a great thinker, great designers there. They have all money, all power. They can do. They are doing. The only thing is that from top to bottom, when it reaches, it becomes a compliance. The intention, and I personally feel that I should not be the one to blame any teacher कि आप नहीं करना चाहते हैं, because ultimately उसको शाम को जो सवाल पूछा जाता है या year end when they are asked कितने percentage बने तुम्हारी class के, or how percentage of the overall percentage of your school is. So the assessment is this way. How then they will be teaching emotions? So the system is in a way designed, I think, and there is a lot complexity there to scale things.
I appreciate all the nuance you all have brought to this question. It's complex and it's hard to there's not one right answer, I think, and it is okay for everyone to have a different definition, every organization to have a different definition of, this is the kind of footprint we want to have on our world. But Ravi, you mentioned integrity, actually a few of you did. And, I actually think that connects back to a deeper sense of well-being, in that integrity brings wholeness to our experience. There's that through line, there's that authenticity, there's that sense of, this is what is really important to me, to us. And we know, by the evidence that we need, that we're moving in that direction, right? And I think there's also something that has come out in what you all have said about the importance of bearing witness. And we know that there's change and there's impact because we see it in our fellow human being, right? And then you kind of run up against all of our human limitations of, how many people can I know and know that their lives have changed, personally know. And so I think this is really hard. And And I can appreciate also the impulse to say, this is a good thing. Why wouldn't we want everyone in the world to have this, right? So I think, as we come to the last 10 minutes here, we're going to end on time because it's only an hour. I want to invite all of you to just share with us, what does well-being mean to you ultimately? And if you haven't said it quite yet, I wonder how you hope that well-being will continue to change lives, including your own life. I don't know if you read the email.
Yes, I was waiting for mic and I was not thinking actually. I had a very clear. Thank you so much. I have already shared what is well-being for me is. It's definitely a journey. It never ends. It has to be a journey. Agar ye jis din khatam ho gaya, it will be like, what is the best poem you ever wrote? This one. If that is the best, then why are you writing now? You have reached the best, no? So I think it's a journey. It has to be a journey. But personally, for me, well-being is the finding all the ways, whether it's badminton, art, jo bhi aap kar sakte hain karo. Find a way to spend time with yourself and understand as much as you can how this body talks to you. That's it. It's emotionally and physically both ways. That is something well-being for me.
Two things I would put my finger on. One is being comfortable in my skin, not having to show something to people that I am not, so being authentic. So that's one. And the second is resilience, because I know there'll be things I don't like happening. That's the nature of the world. To be able to take that and to be able to bounce back, to be able to take it on, move on further. These two, I would say, I would like to put my fingers on.
Yeah, and I think I'll just double click on the first bit that you mentioned around authenticity. And I think for me, and this is something that at SEF is mentioned also in our student vision, for authenticity is essentially showing up in alignment with your head, heart, hand, and soul. And all four of those things are in alignment. And the practices that ensure or enable you to constantly sort of focus on that alignment and bring that alignment back, I think is this journey of well-being. For me, I feel like it's more a practice that you constantly do, and there will be moments when you will be more sort of more in alignment, and sometimes you'll be out of alignment, like Kshamta mentioned, like the car. So yeah.
I think I am still thinking about my definition of well-being, but the more I listen to people and the more I actually experience what it is for me, I think it is to have this deep faith that you are a human and not necessarily you need to be perfect in every single thing. So just being comfortable with whatever you are and also being ready to strive for what you really want. So having this harmony in what I'm saying, what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, what I'm believing, I think having that level of integrity and also trust and comfort in accepting that for whatever. So one day we had a conversation, Daisy, and you said, what is your internal dialogue, Pallavi? And from that day onwards, I actually take time to think about what is the internal dialogue that I'm having within me. I think the day it becomes resilient, it becomes like in harmony with every single thing that I'm doing and thinking and actually saying, the day I feel that I am in my well-being zone. I don't have to pretend anything.
So well-being to me means, believing in the innate goodness of people around. And I would like to see a world where no one lives with that burden of emotional trauma or any kind of emotional pain. If they do so, they find a mechanism or support system where they can reach out to. And if I can be that support system for anyone, I think I've contributed my bit. So yeah, thank you.
I'm going to pick from Elaine Miller Harris's work because I deeply resonate with what she said or what her team has come up with, that well-being is not a straight line. Well-being is not a thing. Well-being is a zone of being or a state of being within the zone. And within the zone, you know, like how we have those lines, we can all go up and down, like, you know, when you put the machine and the heart shows going up and down and the heartbeat shows up and down, it means we are alive. As long as I'm able to remind myself and have practice tools to bring myself back to that zone where I feel safe, where I feel nurtured, comforted. Doesn't matter what emotions I feel. All emotions are welcome, but that zone of being and that constant sort of endeavor to expand that zone for my own self so that I can include myself and others in that zone of feeling well. I think that's what well-being for me is. Thank you.
So everyone, please give a round of applause to our panelists. Thank you all so much.
Please write your questions and I'm hijacking. Pallavi, I'm hijacking.
Thank you. Like I was still feeling obliged.
Okay, I would like to hear a big round of applause for such an engaging and interactive session that we had right now. Yes, Daisy, you have been an amazing moderator right now. I have learned so much, like the way you ask questions, and even the speakers, the small elements that they were adding, I haven't have thought about well-being yet. मतलब अभी तक भी मैं कभी इस तरीके से नहीं सोची हूँ, और जितनी बार I was hearing from different speakers, the meaning of well-being was being add on in my mind. अभी भी मुझे लगता है कि जब अभी भी मुझसे कोई पूछेगा तो शायद कई सारी चीज़ों में बोलूँगी कि ये भी मेरे लिए well-being है, ये भी मेरे लिए well-being है, and it was a wonderful journey that you took me to on, like Daisy, with that question. तो after that, like मैं चाहूँगी कि फिर से हम लोग 1 मिनट का पॉज लें और जो एक्सपीरियंस हमने अभी किया है वो मन में हम फिर से रिफ्लेक्ट करें. कुछ अगर लिखना हो तो लिख सकते हैं. ओके, गोइंग अहेड, मैं एक बार चाहूंगी कि फिर से जैसे नेहा ने हमें बोला था, एक बार एक टाइट हग खुद को करेंगे, ठीक वैसे ही. और खुद को एक वादा कर सकते हैं कि हम जितनी कोशिश कर सकें कि खुद के लिए और अपने आसपास के लोगों के लिए वेल-बीइंग वो सेफ स्पेस क्रिएट कर सकें. Going ahead, I would again like to invite the Vibhor band to fill us all with their amazing energy. I promise I won't interrupt this time. Welcome, Vibhor.
जैसे कि मेंस्ट्रुअल हाइजीन, सोशियो इमोशनल हेल्थ और लीगल राइट्स, विमेन के क्या क्या राइट्स हैं, वो लाइफ में क्या क्या कर सकती हैं, कुछ इस तरह के चैलेंजेस के ऊपर हम लोग बात करते हैं, और फाइनेंशियल लिटरेसी के ऊपर। उसके बियॉन्ड विभोर स्कूल्स में और लो इनकम बैकग्राउंड्स में तो काम करता ही है, साथ साथ एक बैंड भी है जिसमें जितनी भी म्यूजिशियंस हैं सारी की सारी फीमेल है। तो हम शुरू करें फिर। अभी जो हमारा नेक्स्ट सॉन्ग है उसका नाम है विभोर की उम्मीद। तो वो गाना जो है हमने वैसे विभोर जो प्रोजेक्ट है उसको लेकर ही लिखा है। गाने के लिरिक्स बहुत आसान है, इसमें हम लोग बहुत जगह पे जेंडर के बारे में बात करेंगे कि कैसे मेल और फीमेल सब लोग साथ में काम कर सकते हैं और कैसे जो हमारी लाइफ की गाड़ी है उसको आगे बढ़ा सकते हैं। थैंक यू।
छोटा सा मन मेरा, ख्वाहिशें हजार है, बड़े बड़े सपने आसमां के पार है। छोटा सा मन मेरा, ख्वाहिशें हजार है, बड़े बड़े सपने आसमां के पार है। उड़ने को मेरे पंख लेके तैयार है, जोशो जुनून के हौसलों पे सवार है, सवार है। भोर की उम्मीद, सुबह का नूर हूँ, अंधेरी दुनिया में रोशनी भरपूर हूँ। विभोर की उम्मीद, सुबह का नूर हूँ, अंधेरी दुनिया में रोशनी भरपूर हूँ। नर हो या नारी सब मिल के रहे, सारे भेदभावों को कर दे परे। नर हो या नारी सब मिल के रहे, सारे भेदभावों को कर दे परे। नर हो या नारी सब मिल के रहे, सारे भेदभावों को कर दे परे। गर्व हो खुद का गुरूर हो, गर्व हो खुद का गुरूर हो। भोर की उम्मीद, सुबह का नूर हूँ, अंधेरी दुनिया में रोशनी भरपूर हूँ। विभोर की उम्मीद, सुबह का नूर हूँ, अंधेरी दुनिया में रोशनी भरपूर हूँ। मैं अकेली नहीं, मुझसी है कई और, बदलेंगी राहें, जुड़ेंगी नई ओर। मैं अकेली नहीं, मुझसी है कई और, बदलेंगी राहें, जुड़ेंगी नई डोर। मैं अकेली नहीं, मुझसी है कई और, बदलेंगी राहें, जुड़ेंगी नई डोर। चल पड़ी संग सबकी जीत की ओर हूँ, चल पड़ी संग सबकी जीत की ओर हूँ। भोर की उम्मीद, सुबह का नूर हूँ, अंधेरी दुनिया में रोशनी भरपूर हूँ। विभोर की उम्मीद, सुबह का नूर हूँ, अंधेरी दुनिया में रोशनी भरपूर हूँ। भोर की उम्मीद, सुबह का नूर हूँ, अंधेरी दुनिया में रोशनी भरपूर हूँ, रोशनी भरपूर हूँ, रोशनी भरपूर हूँ।
तो हमारा जो अगला गाना है उसका नाम है बादल पे पाँव। तो हम लोग वैसे ज़्यादातर इस गाने को लास्ट में ही गाते हैं क्योंकि ये गाना हमें बहुत एनर्जी देता है। वैसे ही गाना सबने सुना होगा, बादल पे पाँव है। तो शुरू करते हैं, चलो।
सोचा कहाँ था ये जो हो गया, माना कहाँ था ये लो हो गया, सोचा कहाँ था ये जो हो गया, माना कहाँ था ये लो हो गया, चुटकी कोई काटो ना है हम तो होश में, कदमों को थामो ये है उड़ते जोश में, ये बादल पे पाँव है या छूटा दाव है, बादल पे पाँव है या छूटा दाव है, अब तो भाई चल पड़ी अपनी ये नाव है, बादल पे पाँव है या छूटा दाव है, अब तो भाई चल पड़ी अपनी ये नाव है, हो 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 चल पड़ी है हम सफर, अजनबी तो है डगर, चल पड़ी है हम सफर, अजनबी तो है डगर, लगता हमको मगर कुछ कर देंगे हम मगर, ख्वाब में जो दिखा पर था छुपा बस जाएगा वो नगर, ये रे बादल पे पाँव है या छोटा दाव है, बादल पे पाँव है या छोटा दाव है, अब तो भाई चल पड़ी अपनी ये नाव है, बादल पे पाँव है या छोटा दाव है, अब तो भाई चल पड़ी अपनी ये नाव है, हो 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 हो
Thank you so much, Vibho Band, for being present here. It had been a wonderful experience. अब से मतलब आप लोग गा रहे थे लेकिन मैं भी इधर से आपको ज्वाइन कर रही थी. Although I don't know if people like joining or not, but I just couldn't control myself while you were singing. It has been a wonderful experience. We definitely hope कि जैसे आप बोल रहे हैं कि बादल पे पाँव है, आपके पाँव हमेशा ही बादल पे ऐसे बने रहें. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, तो आज की शाम अब क्लोजिंग की तरफ जा रही है. मैं ग्रैंड क्लोजिंग के लिए प्रियंका को इनवाइट करना चाहूँगी और माइक उनको ट्रांसफ़र करना चाहूँगी. माइक ट्रांसफ़र करने से पहले फिर से मेरी तरफ से आप सबको एक सल्यूट है. आप शाम यहाँ पे आए, उस चीज़ के लिए थैंक यू बोलेंगे. और मेरा नाम अंशिका पांडे है, याद रखिएगा, मिलते रहेंगे.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for staying back. आज पूरा दिन जिस तरीके से हम different conversation में engage कर रहे थे, like right from starting from the philanthropist panel, उससे भी पहले हमने एक same page पे आए थे कि हम सब compassion चाहते हैं. And we continued to say like it was wonderful to like जो हम different emotions के बारे में बात करते हैं, वो सब emotions मैं आज महसूस करी थी. जब गरिमा शेयर करी थी कि that philanthropists are not just to sign the paychecks but also to care, like jab when she shared that educators are somebody who are primary focus, I felt very happy. Same goes with Shabda, how she shared कि हम जब relationships जो हम system के साथ, self के साथ या even हमारे work culture में भी कैसे वो how are we translating well-being into our spaces is something that I'm taking away from this space. And closing, like the educators जो भी हमारे साथ share करे थे, they shared their personal stories with us from the classroom especially. I felt sad there when Dilip mentioned that कि हमारे classrooms में वो safe space है क्या? That question made me sad but also hopeful future के लिए. And CSO panel में जिस तरीके से culture पे बात हुई थी, and we were also talking about कि हम खुद को, like नेहा का जो moment था कि हम खुद को hug करने वाला moment, all these moments, like they are going to be a resource for me going forward. And till last minute you all were here, so thank you so much for coming.
Nearly 73% of children in India attend government schools. Many of these schools are especially in rural and tribal areas and have only few teachers. Every day, teachers must go to school and create a meaningful learning experience for children. The recovery of education sector from impact of COVID is ongoing. One of the greatest costs of pandemic was teachers' engagement and well-being, which directly impacts students. Lack of affordable and contextualized curriculums and trainings for personal well-being, lack of resources to cater the need of huge population, lack of trained facilitator even makes the problem more complex. But overall, I think the biggest problem is awareness of prioritizing mental health for teachers.
Specifically with regards to teachers and educators, nobody is there to support them, even when they need it the most.
तनाव तो खूब था, मतलब तनाव तो क्या था, थोड़ा काम का प्रेशर रहता था, तो इसलिए थोड़ा छोटी छोटी बातों पे परेशान रहते थे. उसी चीज को इधर उधर लेके चलते रहते थे, साथियों से पूछते रहते थे.
We started asking this basic question within our team: who give care to caregivers? Since 2020, Brio and Kshamta have partnered together to design a groundbreaking program that helps educators in government schools to build mental and emotional well-being. The program is called Hausla, which means resilience. It is centered on the experience of teachers, created to be approachable and accessible to them. Hausla uses audio recordings and facilitation to help teachers learn well-being skills through stories and experiences over 21 days. These skills include increased awareness of self and others, interconnectedness, compassion, and psychological flexibility. Thanks to a grant from Pinterest, we are able to scale Hausla to 2,000 teachers in Sirohi, Rajasthan this year in partnership with local government and well-being facilitators known as well-beingpreneurs. We trained 24 well-beingpreneurs on basics of leading reflective conversation with a group of teachers. They learned basics of mental and emotional well-being and psychological flexibility. Then, they designed their own well-being spaces for teachers, conducted outreach for every teacher cohort, and ensured that teacher participants felt welcomed.
हौसला कार्यक्रम के दौरान हमें हमारी जो मन स्थिति है, एक तो उसकी तस्वीर हमारे सामने निकल कर गई। जैसे कि हौसला ने एक मुझे ही ऑब्जेक्ट में रख करके, मेरा ही अध्ययन करके मेरे सामने ही एक तस्वीर रख दी हो.
Being a hybrid model, it is totally scalable, and along with that, it is very flexible.
इस हौसला कार्यक्रम के माध्यम से हमारे दिमाग से जो अनयूज्ड डाटा है, एक जो प्रेशर की स्थिति है, उससे हमने निजात पाई है.
Because of this program, many teachers have shared how they have experienced well-being in a new way. Many of them told us how it has improved their teaching and their lives more generally. All of this change shows up in data as well. In a recent evaluation, nearly 70% of teachers increased on the WHO-5 Wellbeing Index. We also saw improvements in their mindfulness skills, resilience skills, and psychological flexibility. As space was created for these teachers to learn these skills, they created nurturing learning environment for thousands of children.
We have mapped what they feel, what they hear, what they think, what they see. And that is why Hosla is a specially articulated program for the teachers.
There are 22 well-beingpreneurs who are going to graduate this year and who are going to take their ideas in every corner of India to create well-being centered initiatives, processes and solutions.
We believe in power of mental health and well-being to expand the range of possibilities for everyone. As we continue to partner with teachers, governments and communities, we hope to see thousands more experience this freedom to live lives of meaning, purpose and impact.